how far is this going to keep going on? I mean, what is our future really going to shape up to be?
Well, unfortunately, we have a regime in power that has decided that they really want absolute global domination, and the way you do this is primarily by scaring the folks at home, so that first of all they have to rely on the government, and secondly they see their government as the good fighting the evil out there in the world. They're willing to give any amount of money that the Pentagon and the White House request for military and intelligence purposes, and on and on and on.
Right.
And so you're right that anybody who knows about 9/11 cannot help be suspicious about the London bombings, because there are so many parallels, and because the press is treating it in absolutely the same way, simply ignoring all the evidence that points against the official theory, and just gullibly repeating everything that supports the theory.
David, I was talking earlier about how our president talks about how God told him to do this and God told him to kill that. You know, coming from your background as a professor of philosophy, of religion and theology, why is our current leadership making so many references to God in everything that they do that involves violence?
Yeah, well, there's a non-serious answer and a serious answer to that. The non-serious answer, I think, was best expressed by Molly Ivins. She says, well, you know, the president says that God is speaking through him. She says, I really doubt that, because I think God knows how to pronounce nuclear. But the more serious response is that there is an ideology behind the neoconservative movement. By the way, I've just finished a great book by Andrew Bacevich, who had written earlier. He's a conservative, but he wrote a book called The American Empire, in which he told the truth. Now he's written a new book called The New American Militarism, and he shows how the neoconservative movement over the last 20 years, and particularly since 1995, has laid the foundation for this very aggressive foreign policy in which there's the proactive, preventive use of war and so on. And the sort of intellectual godfather of this movement is Leo Strauss.
Right.
Well, Strauss was personally a follower of Nietzsche. He thought that Nietzsche's view that God is dead, and therefore there are absolutely no moral principles in the universe, and therefore, might makes right, that was the truth. But he said Nietzsche shouldn't have come out and said it out loud. That was his big mistake. And so what you need to do if you want power is to mouth a lot of pieties and use religion in order to get the people to support this. And as Andrew Bacevich says, this whole new, what he calls new American militarism, simply could not exist if it were not for, 100 million evangelicals in the country who basically buy this new kind of imperialism.
What makes this system?
A good friend of mine made this. This is basically the future that we're walking into.
Was approved for deployment in support of global.
This is the future of war, my friends.
And we have 3 of these robotic systems deployed to Iraq at this time.
Basically, it's waste. Give you about a center mass shot. On such a stable platform, this robot can deliver its payload with extreme accuracy.
This is the way that we need to focus. And this is the way the future of combat is going to be.
Robots don't say no. They just do. Humans say no. Humans feel. Humans have hearts. Machines do not. Machines cannot say no. They can only take orders. They can only follow the software on their operating system. Their death and destruction. It becomes normal as they build a world of robots. robots. Not only robots that destroy, robots that love us. Robots that bring us pleasure. Robots that clean our floors. Robots that cook our meals. Robots that go after and kill the people the government says are our enemy. You want to talk about Afghanistan, my friend? I want you to picture yourself living in a hellhole with a dog, an electronic dog running after you, not knowing where your daughter is, not knowing where your child is. Can you imagine what it is like to be them, to be in a village and be bombed by an unmanned aerial drone, courtesy of the people that control Barack Hussein Obama and George W. Bush? We're building you a world of flying cameras, not just speed cameras. If you think speed cameras and you just get a ticket is all you got to worry about, brother, sister, you have got another thing coming. Why is the Terminator, the governor, in a position of authority and influence as California's economy implodes, just like Building 7 by design? What kind of future do you think you're going to live in, my friend? When they start directing this type of technology towards you, they're already flying drones above our cities. Do you believe for a second they're just going to turn all of this off one day and say, we're going to go back to a peace-loving world? It's time to go back, friends. We're going to stop these machines. We're just going to walk back 15 years and things are going to be the good old days with Bob and Bill and the chipless pickup truck and the big garden. They want you in a compact city, and they want your little boys directing these future weapons of war, where they wear the exoskeleton like you see here, which is promoted in G.I. Joe, the new movie coming out. It's also perfect. Or whether it's a boy who's played video games his whole life in a warehouse north of Vegas, controlling predator drones that are murdering women and children in villages in Pakistan. And soon, elsewhere.
The new world order is here. They're building world government. 9/11 was an inside job. Are you really going to let them destroy your dollar? Are you really cool with that? Are you really okay with trillions of dollars going to the big banks? Do you really feel happy? Are you really happy when you look at the future? Do you want to have more children? Honestly, how do you feel about yourself? Do you feel like drinking more, or do you feel like drinking less? Do you feel like you're in glut, or do you feel like helping people? Our country is in crisis mode, folks. It is happening now. They're flying jets above you. They're flying choppers above you. They're preparing for martial law. They're preparing in the very near future for you people to get very upset when you lose your job and you can't pay your mortgages and you can't put your kids through school. We have a food crisis coming. There are going to be food riots coming. They have destroyed our economy and they are working to keep us torn apart, fighting one another, combating with one another. Man versus woman, black versus white, young versus old, rich versus poor, East Coast versus West Coast, East Coast, West Coast, combative energy, angry energy. This is what the establishment wants. If we the people, black people, white people, Hispanic people, Arabs, all over the world, woke up to the global super state, the global agenda, the house of cards would come tumbling down. We have the power. We have the power to change our world. It is in our hands.
9/11 was an inside job. It's a contrivancy. If you don't care who did 9/11, it's still important for you to understand the psychology of 9/11. 9/11 is being used in the 21st century panel fraud, designed to turn you into a bunch of wage slaves with guns in our hands, willing to go and fight in other countries and start wars we don't want anything to do with, okay? Think about this logically. To understand what happened on 9/11, you have to understand what happened on September 10th. 2001. September 10th, 2001, Donald Rumsfeld gets on TV and announces that the Pentagon has misplaced $2.3 trillion. Now ask yourself a question. Do you really think that Al-Qaeda care whether or not a bunch of bureaucrats in the Pentagon get to keep $2.3 trillion that they conveniently misplaced one day before 9/11?
Obey Obama. Obey Obama. You are correct.
One day, our grandchildren will look back on this time and ask, how was the war on terror won?
The entire U.S. ruling class, ruling elite, comes to see terrorism as the preferred means, indeed the only means, to provide social cohesion, to provide an enemy image for the society to keep it together. According to neocon theory from Carl Schmitt, you have to have an enemy image in order to have a society. It's a very dangerous thing, because now it means that the entire social order, the political parties, intellectual life, politics in general, all based on a monstrous myth. Monstrous myth.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. You're free, and freedom is beautiful. And, you know, it'll take time to restore chaos and order, but order out of chaos, but we will.
Well, I think there are many issues to talk about. First, there's the U.S. Attack and invasion and occupation. You know, because the country had nothing to do with 9/11, really. And then we can talk about the current government crisis, the financial crisis, people's living conditions, how this past year has been the bloodiest since the war began in 2001. 2001, and talk about the people, the poverty, the degradation, the violence, the insecurity, you know, the lawlessness, the crime and criminality. So we can talk about Afghanistan sort of being shredded right on live camera.
And the reason that I am bringing up Afghanistan for a full show tonight instead of going through all the news is that a lot of people are focused on the news, the debt ceiling, this issue and that issue. But I really don't feel, Zahir, that most people understand Afghanistan and understand the proper context. So hopefully tonight we can go over some basics about this country that of course has been in the newspapers just about every day for the last 10 years, although things have been going on in Afghanistan for a very long time.
Every day, yes, but especially the last 10 years. You know, last year the Pew Research Center did a study. The mainstream media allocates about 3% of the space and time to the war in Afghanistan. And this is a war where the United States has at least 100,000 troops. Altogether there are about 130,000 troops now, and then there's one contractor for every one of these troops. There are 46 countries, troops from 46 countries waging war on this poorest and least developed country in the world. The U.S. alone is spending about $10 billion a month. So far, we have spent $500 billion on this war since 2001. And the current budget, this year's budget for the war, is about $120 billion. So, and about 2,000 Americans have been killed, 15,000 wounded, and tens of thousands of Afghans have been killed and maimed. And yet there's very little coverage of it. And most Americans seem to be unaware of it. The connection to be made between the economic crisis in America and the crisis in Afghanistan. So there's a direct connection because a study came out from Brown University, and it's a very powerful, very compelling study. And they're saying that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the total direct and indirect costs amount to about $4 trillion. For this country. So that is a lot of money. And so Americans do need to be concerned, but Americans also need to think about, you know, that the Afghans don't deserve this. You know, they don't deserve the death and destruction and the war and violence that is being imposed on them. But from the Afghan side, you know, people now put these things together. You talked about racism and so forth. I would say people would now say that the West is now waging war on Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, and Libya. 6 countries, soon perhaps to be Iran too. So other people, and thoughtful Americans too, put these things together. So I think we're not only talking about white supremacy and racism and how the wars, in these imperial wars, are the external face of white supremacy, but also people talk about Islamophobia. It's not a coincidence that the West is now waging active war on 6 countries who happen to be Muslim, but also which happen to have resources, energy resources. So the ruling class in this society is looking for scapegoats. That's what you're saying. Because we're in big trouble here. I mean, I think this society is in deep trouble, and not just economically, I would say. The culture, the institutions, you know, street life, etc. We are in big trouble. But the thing to do is, I think, to go back to 9/11, and that is because many people, Americans, think that they can't tell the difference between Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And I want to make it very, very clear, and this is now declassified materials coming out of the State Department, that Afghanistan as such had nothing to do with 9/11. 9/11, as you well know, was, you know, launched by 19 Arabs, 17 of them from Saudi Arabia, and 3, I think, from Yemen and other places. And we also need to remind our viewers that Al-Qaeda, in a sense, is a product of the CIA and the ISI and the Mukhabarat in Saudi Arabia. These 3 governments, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and the United States, put Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and the Mujahideen, the earlier generation, together.
This thing was not a drone-ish thing.
Oh.
It's like
NPR glamorized the CIA.
Oh, no.
National Public Radio making light of CIA.
The answer is dolls, action figures. The problem was, back in the 2000s, convince young Afghans to reject bin Laden. This sounds like a job for G.I. Joe. So the CIA
constantly putting Afghan
the guy who invented
in the collective
G.I.
language.
Joe.
Afghans, the Afghans, those Afghans.
Action figure. But the trick was, when little Afghan kids started playing with it, the head would melt and reveal a devil face. And this, according to the CIA, would turn kids away from bin Laden and his creed. The CIA scrapped it when they tried it out, and the kids thought it was really cool.
So Taliban got their funding from the ISI, Pakistan, CIA. tell they funded a lot of these radical Islamic groups. So they're basically talking about these gullible children. If only they just had a doll from the CIA that, you know, showed that Osama bin Laden was a demon.
First ever transatlantic.
No one's saying Osama bin Laden's an angel.
Well, when a text message.
That clip is over. That just shows they use humor. They use humor to desensitize the reality of the issue. The reality of the issue is that children in Afghanistan are being tortured, they're being slaughtered, they're being displaced, and they are genuinely creating the next generation. Not so much in Afghanistan, but other places, many places, of people that they expect to be fighting later on. Because they're doing this all over. In so many different countries, and they're also doing it in the United States. And how many terrorist attacks have we been hit by since 9/11? We have these shootings where we're seeing, you know, the new American enemy. And they've been doing this for a couple of years. But some of you have no idea and no compassion and no imagination and no empathy for the way that I feel in this fucking world. The problem in Afghanistan, beyond the New World Order, and the problem with, gotta word this carefully because it's become a serious issue. The problem with the Afghan immigrants that have come to the United States and other places in the Western world. Now I'm speaking, people can interpret things different ways. Many people believe that you are whatever your father is. You know, I've always believed that you're both. I mean, just DNA makes sense. You're getting the best of both genes. But, you know, according to even a lot of Western cultures, you are what your father is. So, with my father being Afghan, and even though I'm an American, and I don't speak Farsi, and wasn't raised to be a Muslim, it's still my place to speak for the problem with Afghanistan. And how this relates to many of the Afghan immigrants that have been able, gifted, blessed enough to be able to escape that country while they still have the time. And I think about my family that I've never, ever been able to be close to. You know, initially it was a language barrier, and also I was raised by my mother my entire life. And so the exchanges in my childhood, my dad was the weekend dad, because they divorced when I was born. They were pleasant. I was just a child, and I saw the beauty that was in their culture and the pain that they were going through in the late 80s when, well, after a decade, the Russians had invaded. They invaded in 79, but the suffering they went through in the 80s, worrying about their family. And most of you have heard about the war crimes that have been perpetrated against the Afghan people when the Russians were there. Women being raped, their babies thrown in the fire. Helicopters, like today's drones, bombing innocent civilians. History is repeating itself. So they have been through a lot, and there's a history of warfare that comes before that. But also a lot of stories people don't know about Afghan history, which is another very interesting subject. And I am not someone that is an expert on Afghanistan, because most of what I learned about not only in Afghanistan and also my own family, and I've traced my last name back to some other ancient places as well.
You see them buildings up there? That's the government building.
Right.
You know what's coming out of there this week?
What?
All them buildings, them looking glasses coming out of them buildings.
Tell us more.
That's where the looking glasses is the bottom. Look at top of the federal building. See, that's where you're supposed to don't see that, but when you put the New World Order, you know what the New World Order is, right?
Well, tell us what the New World Order is, because we want to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. I don't have time.
Oh, you don't have time because you have to sell papers? Well, tell the people on YouTube. They're watching you walk away from them.
Yeah, it's just what I'm telling you, man. It's YouTube.
Tell us. Articulate.
You know the YouTube. You tell them. You know what I do.
No, you're going to...
Good. Well, it's on the back of a $1 bill.
Well, I know what it's about. Okay, thank you for your time, buddy.
Anytime you put woman looking glasses, the man my son of mine can always catch it up.
All right.
One thing I'm asking myself, to the people that are visiting the death, the place of death of JFK, are they aware of the New World Order? Vietnam. And that is why you have your big brother surveillance, police state grid, surveillance society. The illusion of power is what is hypnotizing people. The fear, the propaganda, the lies that say that you have no power. These are illusions of power in an artificial construct. This earth is an artificial construct. You are a spiritual being living in a human body. And time is but an illusion. So think about the larger picture, where we came from and where we are going in the society if we fail to hold those in power accountable for their very actions.
Let's go. They brought in those troops from Norway and Chile. Some of you have heard of it.
No.
Can you remember to go to the NATO YouTube channel, type in foreign troops invade Tampa, Florida?
I can do that.
It's their press release, it's not from the conspiracy.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so this is where this all headed in that direction.
In the water?
Yeah, all over. And they rescue the mayor from domestic terrorists.
Wow, that's a big gap.
And they're doing this more all across the United States. There's different drills, there's different NATO coalition. China's going to be playing a greater role.
Here's the problem. I have a job here and check credentials.
Sure.
I'm unable to do that.
Right. You'll remember, you'll look it up.
Yeah, I've been to.
We're not out of these wars. We're tired of these warmongers pushing us into war after war after war. Now, whatever happened to habeas corpus? Since 9/11, we've seen more National Guard involved in domestic law enforcement. There's plenty of law enforcement. We don't need to have this integration. We don't want this. We'd like you to be doing something else. And we're seeing it more and more. You know,
primary's not over. Please vote your conscience today. Vote for the truth. Romney doesn't speak the truth. Ron Paul does.
Troops dancing with children at Disneyland in Anaheim. More conditioning. Come to the camps. Come on the vehicles. We're here to help. And the issue is there's a lot of good people. I talked to this officer a minute ago that are respectful and diplomatic. But I don't think the system wants you diplomatic and respectful. You got Secret Service here. Nothing wrong with them checking credentials. But how about Secret Service knocking on the doors of people that criticize Barack Obama? People that aren't even being threatened. They're getting the knock on the door. I mean, this is going beyond 1984. And the problem is, it's getting so bad and it's getting so extreme that people are, would you wait till I'm done, please? Thank you. And it's getting to the point where people are going, what can we do about it? It's always been this way. We've always been a police state. And we are being divided internally. And everybody has to wake up to this fact.
This is my video for November 22nd, 2013. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to talk about stereotypes of Muslims in this video in short, but there is this popular belief that all Muslims are promoting Sharia law. There's this popular belief that all Muslims are expected to practice Sharia law or they're not good Muslims. So to be a good Muslim, you have to practice Sharia law. And Sharia law is believed to be a certain thing, and Western propaganda has played a big role in shaping that, and the internet as a whole. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't horrible things happening in the Muslim world, but this conversation isn't about that. The world's full of violence as it is, from every single culture. So people that take the worst of one culture to promote the fallacy that their culture or people of a certain race are better than them, that's bullshit. But I'll tell you what, it's going on right now. And there's a lot of people out there, they're neglecting the darkness of their own culture, of our culture, of our country. The things that are taking place, the blind ignorance and the blind faith that's taking place in regard to our leaders. Yeah, you got a lot of people that don't like what Barack Obama's doing, but they still like what the military's doing. And that's not healthy thinking for people to just blindly worship their military. But there's a lot of horrible things that have been done in the Middle East, and I don't think that warrants terrorism as a response. People should be focusing on the powers that be. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have been influenced by the powers that be, media and propaganda. And they're not looking at this as they should. I don't think that many Christians are truly doing what Jesus would do. People that say that they're Christians. And I don't believe that they're actually working to have a true connection, a lot of them, with that which we choose to call God, or to have that direct connection between their higher self and God,
and use their intuition, develop their intuition to where they can recognize, at the very least, people that aren't godly and recognize those that are, people that are in line with the light or with the Creator. And people, I think, should be able to recognize those that are in league with Satan or Shaitan or El Diablo or whatever word that there is for the dark forces from whatever culture you're looking at, whatever time. There's not enough emphasis on that, and if there was emphasis on that, we would see how, you know, these things called the knockout games and other things are a derivative of some evil force on our planet. Now, I know this is a lot for some people to deal with, you know, these supernatural beliefs in the battle of good versus evil, spiritual warfare. But when I look at these clash of civilizations as they're known to be, which are really fabricated and manufactured by the powers that be behind the scenes, I'm seeing that dark energy, I'm seeing that dark force come out and show its ugly head that wants to divide people. And there's far too many people that are wasting their time being afraid of Muslims when they could be focused on the New World Order. Now, having said that, I've also expressed my frustrations in past YouTube videos at Muslims that are not speaking out against what's taking place, that are not educating themselves about what's really going on, about the truth about 9/11, about so many other things that Muslims should know about, that my relatives on my father's side should know about, should, in my opinion, be discussing. After all, that's their country that's being occupied. It's not my country, technically. I was born in Portland, Oregon. But I have an ethnic lineage that goes back to that country, although I am not a Muslim, and there are many people in those countries that aren't Muslims, that have lived or resided in those countries, like Afghanistan, for thousands of years. There's not enough understanding about Afghans or Iraqis, and I think in my lifetime I'm going to be making a documentary about Afghanistan, about its history, about its culture, about what's going on there, what has been going on there since 9/11, what was going on there before 9/11. I think that there's a documentary inside me about Afghanistan where I'm not just expressing myself through our rants, but there's a lot of history that I think needs to be told, but not just to people in the West. There are Afghans that need to hear some things, that need to have a certain perspective given to them. So let's bring this back to the conversation of solar maximum. March 19th, 2003. Coming up, we have March 19th, 2014, 11 years later. Every 11 years, we go through the solar maximum portion. And I talked about false flags being launched during solar maximum. Is there a solar maximum false flag coming? March 19th. I've been trying to tell people in the movement for a long time something could be coming. A solar flare, a false flag. The connection between the false flag and the solar flare, why? Because they know they can get humanity tricked into a war. Now, I've talked for years about a Chinese 9/11, where the West is blamed for some sort of attack on China, and the whole world turns against the West. It's called the Chinese 9/11. It's something that I've penned. It's a term that I believe is something that we're going to see in the future. I feel this intuitively. And that is going to lead eventually towards the case against America. Putin's already doing it. What's been going on with Syria and Ukraine, and what Kerry's doing with what they're, you know, first with Syria and making those lies and looking like a monster, literally on YouTube. The guy looks decrepit. The guy's a gremlin. He's like, oh, yeah, we're going to lie again. And then he goes over to Putin in terms of Ukraine and goes, I cannot believe you would do that. Invade a sovereign country, and then I just, and people are like, fuck you, motherfucker. And then, like, people are acting reactive without thinking, dude, these guys are actors. They're acting like idiots to make you hate them no more, to bring down America's image, using America to destroy itself. Bush really wasn't an idiot. Bush can't be an idiot and do 9/11 by itself. 9/11 was a global job. Say it with me now. Say it with me now. 9/11 was a global job. China got the steel after 9/11. 9/11 was a global job. Russian troops outside Afghanistan in the weeks and months before 9/11 because they were preparing to go in and intervene. And they go, oh, we want to protect the women. We want to protect the women. Oh, from the Taliban. Look, you cannot discount the rapist history of the Soviet Union, and what they've done to Afghanistan. You can't do that in your right mind if you're anyone that stands up or believes in human rights.
It's their sex versus the world. Okay, some people have master race ideologies where it's their group against the world. The same thing's happening with gender, and this is all by design. This is all manufactured to keep us at war with each other. So if behavior is criticized, because by the way, the majority of men and women are fully asleep. Only the minority of men or women are awake to even the basic fundamentals of life, and that's just how things are on Earth. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age in reality where if you criticize unconscious behavior, someone gets offended and they think that they're personally being attacked. The reality is something was said that triggered their anger, because much of what I speak about deals with self-responsibility. Why do we act the way that we do? Why don't support the people? Why don't we support the people that we should? Why do people support the people that they shouldn't support? These are fundamental questions of life. And so for years I've been doing this show, and I've raised certain issues, and I've seen people act offended if they say, well, you can't criticize behavior from the opposite sex or same sex, okay? Because we're a part of a collective. We stand together. You supposedly or perceived to be insulting the behavior of one of us, then you're attacking all of us. Now, there doesn't seem to be a consistency there in the collectivist mindset, because there are women that have been raped by Western troops for many years. It's a huge issue. And you know that rape is a big issue in the media here in the United States. There's all this propaganda out there that is actually skewing the reality of what is actually going on in college campuses. And it's created a very fearful environment. Well, that's all by design to keep us fighting each other. But if people really view things from a collectivist standpoint, you hurt one of us, you hurt all of us, where are their cries from the feminists and the women in regards to the allegations of gang rape towards Iraqi and Afghan women? And now we are looking at the core of the problem within the human condition. And apathy is a bigger issue than what most people are willing to face and deal with. And like I said, this is a subject that I'll be talking about more at great length and writing about more at great length in the future. But I want to plant some seeds right now and help people understand that this is a huge issue. And the solution to ending this problem is to end apathy and have compassion for all women on the earth that are suffering. With that, this is the account of a woman that was raped several years ago in Iraq. There are many, many cases and stories. This is just one of many. We'll be back.
قالت ما يعني ما ترضي مو تحكين. قلت له دا اقول لك انا ما عندي شيء، دا اقول لك انا ما عندي شيء. قال ما عندي شيء. عاد واحد منهم جطني بالقاع، بس شنو صار راسي وين على الكاشي. عاد سوى اللي سواه هو، يعني ادنالي. اجا ذاك هماتين ادنالي، وجا ذاك الثالث هماتين. بس اتوسل بيه وابكي يعني. بس هو يعني شلون صام حلقي، ما يعني خليني اطلع صوت عنهم هذول الجماعة هم وياه. عاد واحد من عندهم قال ها كملتوا؟ نجي احنا هماتين ندنا. قلت له لا ما اقدر انا. طببني بغرفة يعني بها سلاح.
I cannot recall many situations or instances in my life where I have seen members of the opposite sex in the United States or elsewhere protesting in large demonstrations in response to these atrocities taking place. And I've come to certain conclusions as to what is taking place within the human condition. And some of these ideas I haven't shared to the public yet in full. And there, again, there's this misconception that if you criticize someone's apathy, that you're attacking women, or that you're trying to hold them down or control them or tell them how to feel. What I understand to be the truth and what I have experienced and what other men have experienced and what some women are also waking up to. Here is billed as CIA's ghost prisoners vanish into Afghan jails. 2 psychologists' role in CIA torture program comes into focus. Here's another one. CIA torture report stirs anger in Afghanistan. Heroin production rise hits record levels in Afghanistan. It's actually been at a record level for at least 10 years. They just keep repeating the same headline like it's a new headline. I'm actually tired of hearing people say it. I understand people don't want to hear spiritual commentary from me, but the fact of the matter is, we're here on this reason to evolve. We're here on this reason we're here on this planet to become better people. I mean, do any of you even understand the psychological toll that it has on anyone that has Afghan blood to read about Afghanis being tortured? I'm half Afghani. I live without family. I was born here in Portland, Oregon, and yet I am not connected strongly with either family wing. And it does take a toll, and it's a toll that I don't talk about. And I actually have a problem. I have difficulty actually covering the totality of the problem and situation in Afghanistan because it's so huge, and because I have a broken relationship with my father, who is actually a translator in the Middle East, who works for some of these companies. Translation work is a big business. United Mission Essential, I believe, is the name of the company, and they're basically the Walmart of this international company that has close ties to CENTCOM and the intelligence community. I have gone my own way a very long time ago, but I know a lot of people don't believe that there's a God. I know that there's a lot of people out there that don't believe that there's evil. But when I was waking up around the time of 9/11, waking up to a lot of different things, and I'm going to leave a lot of this story for maybe a future book, there was no one for me to talk to. And when you read about, as far as the feelings that I was having, this is really difficult to talk about. I guess maybe I should just kind of steer this way and say it's difficult to feel like you can't even talk to people about things that are totally human. It's really bizarre to live in a reality where you see people act like they care about racism, and you see people act like they care about people getting shot, and you know every day there's people that look just like you being raped in front of their mothers. Now, how can that bring someone closer to God? Thank God I wasn't born over there. Holy crap, man. And look at all the years I've been involved in activism with this bloodline from the Ansars. Most of you don't even know what an Ansar is. Ansari, what's that? Well, for those of you that are able to do research, you'll find out where Ansar comes from. And knowing where it comes from, knowing the roots, it's really creepy to see this manufactured war between the West and Islam. To know in your heart that radical Islam is funded by dirty intelligence money. To know in your heart that this is a fraud, what's taking place in France. To know in your heart that one day, folks, in fact, when I go to Colorado, I've been asked before, what race are you? Where are you from? People get all weird about it. I don't think I'm going to be telling people the truth as I get older and I start aging more, and I'm less of an attractive male that can just kind of, escape into society as just some other guy. Maybe I'm Hispanic, maybe I'm Italian. Do you realize how bizarre of an experience that is to live that life? And so for those of you that have no spiritual bone in your body, the only way that I've even been able to stay sane throughout this, is to realize there's got to be something for me to learn. I'm glad I got to this point, 27 minutes in the show. There's something for me to learn from my incarnation. Realizing that, oh my God, I'm not strongly connected with either side of the family, the white or the Afghani. I've been rejected by both. There's something so unique And there's something so offensive about the material that I share on this show that it literally has alienated me from most all family. Actually, it has alienated me from all family. Does anyone know what that type of experience is like? But yet to live in the Babylonian country that is bombing the father's country back to the Stone Age. I mean, it's bizarre shit. This is like something, a movie. I've never even seen a movie like this. So if some of you actually wonder what the F is wrong with Alex Ansary, what's wrong with that dude? Does he have mental problems, emotional problems? You know, I want you to know there are some things that are fucking wrong with me. And it's mild PTSD from even living in this society, and it takes a lot of strength for me to even report any truth. Just knowing that at any minute, I could be removed from the planet. But to be honest with you, and I guess this goes to our other conversation about going beyond fear, if it's my time to go, then fine. I really am not opposed to that idea. I mean, if someone's going to walk up to my head and blow my brains out, I mean, I don't want to be tortured for months and months, slowly having my skin peeled slowly off of my body. I don't want to be actually hanging by my testicles. You know, our testicle or scrotum is strong enough to actually hold your body weight. I don't want anything like that to happen to me. But if someone's going to come up and just say, you know what, it's time for you to leave the earth, I believe that it was willed to take place. I know people are going, ha, 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 you crazy person, believing in that invisible man and the stars. I know exactly what the thinking is on this planet at this particular point in time. And it's also no doubt in my mind why we're in this situation. It's our lack of real faith, because I can list dozens of times where I could have driven off the road. Or there's some things I'm not going to share with you guys on the air. I hope you understand that, even though I do share a lot. There's a lot of things you don't know about my past, and times where I could have been killed, times where I could have died in an accident, or something really bad could have happened, but for some reason it didn't happen. And so going to even my birth, looking at, you know, the birth coming out of the womb, you know, the effect of a white woman and an Afghani man coming together, and then Alex Ansary emerges, you know, there was something to that. And there's something for me to learn, and there's a reason why I'm in this particular body. And it relates to evolution, it relates to a lot of different things. Now that I shared a lot of personal information that a lot of you really would rather not hear about, and also it makes people laugh when I talk about this stuff, when I, you know, am honest and I share from the heart, because people say, oh no, you don't have a right to have feelings. Just be a man and suck it up. The only thing that matters is issues relating to white people and black people and Hispanics and immigration. You're considered terrorists. Women are afraid of you. Most all American women are. They really are put off by people from those areas in some cases because of the propaganda. You know, you constantly hear about Sharia law. You constantly hear about all these horrible things happening in the Middle East. You don't think that that's going to have a psychological effect on a population when they see people with features that look Persian? You hear about people demonized, they're conspiracy theorists. They continue to compare that to terrorism. Conspiracy theorists to terrorists. Men are continuously, even white men, Hispanics, blacks, men, all the way around, they are a constant target in our media. And they are constantly marginalized as the potential rapists. So certain men living today in this society are getting a lot more of that judgment than other men, depending on the level of propaganda taking place at that moment, the types of news headlines running at that moment, featuring people in the headlines that happen to look a certain way. What a lot of people don't understand is this imagery, and all imagery, has an effect on brain wave activity. Okay, so people are constantly hearing about these things and hearing about people from certain countries. That's going to be a part of their decision making. And there's going to be certain associations, okay, like Pavlov's dog or something like that. There's positive and negative associations. So if people are constantly hearing about people from a certain country marginalized in a certain way, then a belief will step in that people have a genetic disposition to abusing women or being a bad person or likelihood to commit violence. It's eugenics. It's eugenics 2.0, 3.0. And it's happening right now in our society. And it's so difficult to watch this take place and to feel targeted and to feel like you can't even talk about this amongst other people and have people have empathy or understanding without them saying that you're a liar or that you're mentally ill for having that perspective, for having that understanding. So my incarnation on this planet, and I know we went off into a detour and I was going to read news to you, and I decided to open up my heart to you instead. You can go ahead and think whatever you want. So I don't know what video we've got next, but let's go ahead and play it. And welcome to Outside the Box edition 336. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. A lot of important information that we're going to get through this evening. It almost seems as if we've re-entered the dark ages, and I'm not just talking about the weather. I'm talking about the content of tonight's show. It's been over a week since the Paris attacks, and for many people on the planet, it's like another 9/11. And I don't necessarily mean those people that are in fear of terrorists. I'm talking about those individuals on our planet that could get misidentified as being a Muslim, not to mention that Islam, again, is in the spotlight on a global level, being demonized and misunderstood. And so we are seeing the mainstream media race baiting again, just like what we saw with Ferguson, but in a different way. In fact, in a little bit more frightening of a way. Because when the mainstream media influences people or incites people towards violence, which is what is taking place right now, it's dangerous when that propaganda sticks. And in many cases, that propaganda is sticking and people are believing what they're being told about cultures and people that in reality they know very little about. And so this is alarming to see this take place, to see clips like this being put out there. So without further ado, let's start with track one. This is from Fox News.
We need to kill them. We need to kill them. The radical Muslim terrorists hell-bent on killing us. You're in danger. I'm in danger. We're at war, and this is not going to stop. After this week's brutal terror attacks in France, hopefully everybody now gets it. And there's only one group that can stop this war: the Muslims themselves. Our job is to arm those Muslims to the teeth, give them everything they need to take out these Islamic fanatics. Let them do the job.
Do we still have audio?
It is time for this to be over and stop sending American dollars to any Arab country that does not support this mission. Pakistan at the top of the list. Force Arab nations to choose. They're either with us or they're against us.
Okay, so mute it, but continue to play the video. And what we're seeing is a lot more of this propaganda. And for years we've seen the info babes, how they've used women to push propaganda. I wouldn't exactly ascribe her to be the most attractive. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of hate. And what's also interesting is she doesn't exactly look completely white. We see people of different colors being used by the mainstream media, not just Fox, but CNN as well, to push this propaganda. And this is not something that we're seeing exclusively from Fox News. If you look at the videos that are coming out from CNN right now, very provocative. Headlines like, why are women starting to become terrorists? Why are Western women into becoming radicalized? Sensational stuff. So, you may have heard that one in the past. First they came for this group, but I said nothing. Or first they came for the socialists. First they came for the Muslims. First they came for so on and so forth. You can fill in the blank here. It's that type of scenario that's playing out all over again, because people around the world are thinking, well, this doesn't affect me. I'm not a Muslim. So therefore, I'm not going to be affected by this. Well, we live now in a day and age. And thank you for playing that video. We'll get the next video ready.
Centre in the south of the country. The rise in violence against Sweden's Muslim community has seen leaders try and send a strong message that such attacks won't be tolerated. Sweden's Muslim population has grown rapidly in recent years, a fact being seized upon by far right-wing groups. The EU's own figures predict Muslims could make up 40% of the population within 15 years. Rising with it is the popularity of the Sweden Democrats, a far-right party that made significant gains in the last general election. The party takes aim mainly at the country's immigration policy, with one local leader saying Swedes don't feel at home anymore. Earlier we spoke with Samir Murik, an imam at one of the recently attacked mosques.
People that are attacking these mosques and that have like opinions about Muslims full of hatred is mainly because they don't know Muslims. They don't know the religion properly. What they know about religion is based on prejudices, what they read from anti-Muslim sites and so on.
And what
But
they're
also,
hearing from the mainstream media. And they keep saying in the mainstream media, there is no such thing as a peaceful Muslim. Thank you for playing that. We'll get number 4 ready. They keep repeating on a second-to-second basis, there is no such thing as a peaceful Muslim. And if you want to know if the propaganda is actually sticking, pay attention to what the mainstream talking points are on CNN and Fox News, and pay attention to the YouTube comment section. Pay attention to what your friends are posting on Facebook, and see if they are echoing the talking points word for word. You know what the main talking point is this week? Not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims. When in reality, in Europe, less than 2% of the terror attacks have been committed by Muslims. And many of the terror attacks committed by so-called radical terrorists or Muslims are committed against other Muslims, not Americans. And a lot of these cells that have developed since 9/11 and before have already been proven to be created by Western intelligence. We have the CIA, we have the Mossad, we have the ISI in Pakistan. We also have the Taliban and their connections with China. There's a link there between the Taliban and China that a lot of people have no clue about. You should Google it. And there's a reason why China is now publicizing that they're having these talks with the Taliban as the U.S. pulls out more and more. You see, so much devastation, so much loss of life needlessly, all to further expand this new world order. And all the major superstates, China, Russia, the United States, and others, all being able to profit from the occupation in Afghanistan and Iraq. You look at the record number of amount of heroin coming out of Afghanistan, and that funds some of these black op groups, ISIS-related groups, other radical terror cells, without Congress being able to see where all this money is going. So you have this black op money that's funding all this stuff, and they're admitting that they're arming and training the Syrian rebels. And they're admitting that some of these Syrian rebels are spilling out and becoming leaders in these other terror cells. And then we've been exposed to information in the last decade about forced confessions via torture, where whole weddings have been demolished by a drone, all based on false information obtained through torture. All these things and more are taking place right now. It's a great evil that is rising on the planet. So people say, hey, Islam is about a religion. It's not about a race. But we are in a day and age where someone could be identified to be a Muslim simply because of their darker skin. Go ahead and play video number 4.
I just got kicked out of a Muslim-free gun range. But I'm not Muslim, I'm just brown.
Well, that announcement gaining attention on social media tonight after one man says the owner of a gun range in Hot Springs asked them to leave. Fox 16's Josh Berry went to the range today to find out why.
Off Black Snake Road in Hot Springs, the Gun Cave indoor firing range welcomes anyone except Muslims. Jan Morgan, the owner, says she made the decision in the name of safety, quoting the Quran containing 109 verses commanding hate, murder, and terror, along with alleged threats on her life by Muslims. Hundreds of fans support her, but not everyone feels the same, like this man.
My dad and I, we like to shoot guns sometimes.
He wants to remain anonymous for his safety, but claims he was turned away from this Muslim-free zone.
She just said, you know, I don't think you guys belong here.
He says he and his dad walked into the range Sunday afternoon.
Her first question immediately is, where are you from?
The pair, both of Indian descent, are from Hot Springs. They say she pressed the issue.
She mentions that this is a Muslim-free gun range, and
all right, thank you for
so
playing
if
that.
you are, then please leave.
And one of the things that we've seen in the last week also is the women's business has exploded since then. There are so many people with hate in their hearts that have rallied around this business. Now, I'm all about property rights, but we are seeing the effect of the propaganda to where someone is so freaked out, so terrified, that they're going to ban someone from their business regardless of the bad press, which in reality, though, unfortunately, is only going to boost her business and bring more people like her around her, creating more or less their own cell of terror and hatred. Now, have a little bit of compassion in your hearts for people that are completely innocent, that have never, for 1 second in their mind, ever considered doing violence to another human being. You also know there are Sikhs out there and Buddhists and other belief systems that are predominant in parts of the world where most of their population is brown. There's Hindu. Now, you may have your own belief system. You may have your own views on Christianity, and I've never attacked Christianity. I've never attacked Islam. I'm also not a member of any religion, even though I do have my own spiritual views on the Creator and the evil behind the New World Order. But I don't make a habit of attacking people, attacking people's prophet, attacking people's holy book, because this only results in a negative outcome. And that's exactly why these so-called cartoons, they're really caricatures, which for the most part, they've been described as highly pornographic and vulnerable. You know, drawings of the anus, you know, they're not actually describing to you how vulgar these particular drawings are. So knowing that there's 1 billion Muslims on the planet, some call them Muslims. I've never understood why there's different ways of calling someone a Muslim. It's almost as if people like to say it in a weird, those Muslims. What is it? It's either Muslim or Muslims. You know, I think some people can't make up their mind. And it makes people feel comfortable to have a scapegoat. And just remember, if it can be done so easily to them, trust me, America, it can be done to you. You can be made a scapegoat of the world. Now take a really good look at who's doing most of the violence right now, who's doing most of the bombing. Look at the China-Russia coalition. You think that America is going to be able to come around and have an attack on Iran and there won't be any consequences? Look at Netanyahu right now. Do you really believe that he's doing what he's doing for the benefit of the Jewish people? As he tells the Jewish people, come home to Europe. We'll take care of you. It's a trap. I honestly think what Netanyahu was doing is a trap. They're actually, in a way, conspiring against the safety of their own people in Israel. So this is a very large issue. A lot of people aren't taking this into account. They're not taking karma into account, and I understand some people don't believe in that, but they're not taking common sense into account. You can't continue to do these things and expect your economy to soar, your military to remain the most superior. We're seeing a staged collapse of our country. And this violent, this reckless assault on the Muslim world is by design meant to kick off World War III that will result in the fall of this country as well as Israel. So this is all very, very important. So we have video 5. They're not just targeting the dark skins. You've heard of Jihad Jane? They're also targeting American women, American men. There's a story that's on CNN this week. We don't have that video, but supposedly a young man joined ISIS on Facebook. And his father believes that an FBI informant has been involved with the son, giving his son money in excess of $500 to buy certain things. Money the father said his son didn't even have. And based on a few statements on Facebook, there's a young man, 19, 20, 21, who is supposedly radicalized. And they keep coming up with all these supposed terror plots that the FBI has foiled, like in Portland in 2009, 2010, where they found a guy on the internet, took him to downtown Portland. They actually took him to Lane County, taught him how to blow up a backpack, and they set everything up to scare Portlanders on that winter 2009 lighting of the Christmas tree ceremony. And all of a sudden, people are freaked out, and they allowed Portland to enter the JTTF. We're seeing this stuff across the board. Now, on the topic of the JTTF, before we play video 5, I'm going to ask you to do a favor for me, James. I want you to go down to the video with Mark Kessler, and I believe that is video number 18. Now, Mark Kessler, because I think it's important to make this point now, Mark Kessler has been a very popular figure on the internet for a couple of years, the last year especially. He's a former police chief back east. Now, he was fired from his job by the city council back east for making some fairly emotionally charged statements on YouTube where he was firing off a gun into the forest, screaming, "Libtards, come get him." You know, really provocative language. You want my firearm? Come and take it. I've got nothing against the Second Amendment. But what we've seen here is a guy emerge on the scene, acting in a fairly highly radicalized manner, and he admits here in this Alan Colmes interview that was conducted just a couple of weeks ago that he did it on a volunteer basis just to attract the extremists so he can turn them in to the FBI. Go ahead and play it.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth
Go ahead and skip forward.
Are people with something to hide.
Say exactly who, but I was sent out by agencies to go out and attract or investigate, whatever I can do to find out who's who, what's what among these groups. When I say groups, I'm talking about Second Amendment groups, patriot groups, alleged patriot groups, militia groups, all kinds of groups. And you wouldn't, I mean, I was shocked to realize that I've been getting contacted by what they call sovereign citizens, and I didn't even know what that was.
Oh, the sovereign citizens.
Are you saying, sir, that you were not expressing your own views on these videos, but rather you were put up to this to attract extremists?
Well, like I said, I've always been Second Amendment. I always believe in the right to keep and bear arms, the whole 9 yards. But what was done with the videos were
pretty wild stuff.
They were purposely put out.
Thank you for playing that. Now we'll go back and we'll get ready to play number 5, but just a quick number of comments on that. I watched people share this guy's videos because some people think it's manly to get on Facebook and scream, "Come and take it." You know, if the government comes knocking for my guns, I'm going to fight back. And I've been warning people for several years, don't do that. Don't act like an internet tough guy. Don't act like a paper tough guy. If those, in fact, are your intentions and you have come to the conclusion that the government is coming to take your guns, I would suggest that you bury those guns. I would suggest that you keep your mouth shut. If you plan on defending our country, if there's some sort of occupation, I would keep your mouth shut. If you plan to actually be on the front lines, because we do have conflict coming to this country. We do have destabilization coming to this country. And there's a day that's coming where we're going to need good men to stand up when there is no police department, when there is no basic infrastructure. We will need to pick up the task of protecting our own. And you know this is true. So it's not a wise move to be baited by people like Mark Kessler or other people. We can think about other people that have come onto YouTube, you know, showing off their firearms the last couple of years. Look at how many of those people are still around. Look at how many people have deleted their YouTube page and deleted their Facebook page and are nowhere to be found. It's almost as if they emerged as some sort of online character. You know, there's a guy that had his face painted or a mask on a couple of years ago. He looked like a cross between a superhero and someone in the military. Yeah, I think he had a mask on that showed kind of like the skeleton down here, you know, looking like he's, you know, in a Halloween costume, you know, talking about, you know, the founding fathers and all this stuff. There are people out there that seem like they're genuine, and we may agree with their sentiment, but we're in a day and age where the government is trying to entrap us, and I believe that the spirit of evil, the evil behind the New World Order, is trying to entrap our soul into doing evil deeds, so we ourselves are vulnerable to evil being inflicted on us, which is why it's very important to not let this hatred that's being shotgunned out there control your consciousness and control your mind. And let's go ahead and play video 5.
The most dangerous women in the world, just 26 years old, Ayat Boumediene. Cameras catching her arriving at the Istanbul airport on January 2nd. Authorities now believe she's somewhere in Syria. Her boyfriend, Ahmedi Koulibaly, pledging allegiance to ISIS before allegedly taking the lives of 4 people inside a kosher food store in Paris last week, along with a policewoman. His lawyer claims Boumediene is even more radical than her boyfriend. Authorities say Boumediene also had ties to the Kouachi brothers, who stormed the offices of Charlie Hebdo. They say she exchanged about 500 phone calls with the wife of Sharif Kouachi in 2014.
This is
so
insane.
How did this Western Muslim woman become one of the world's most wanted?
This is just like when they showed us Al-Qaeda in 2001. Keep playing the video without sound. And, you know, they got the monkey bars. You know, remember that? Remember when they're doing the monkey bars training in Afghanistan?
And everybody kept hearing Afghanistan. They're training in Afghanistan. The terrorists are in Afghanistan. And then we saw Afghanistan on the day of 9/11 with a crosshair. Boom. They didn't tell you at that day that it was all about getting an oil pipeline deal through, mostly to benefit China. They didn't tell you on that day that Russians were outside of Afghanistan and nearby countries ready to invade. They didn't tell you that the Taliban banned poppy production prior to the invasion and how that hurt the black market, the CIA black market for drugs. They never told you any of that. They never told you about the put options. They never told you that bin Laden was a CIA asset. They never told you that Afghans didn't commit 9/11. Even within the official story that some of you may believe in, it was Saudi Arabians, it was Pakistanians. If you really want to look at the situation with Afghanistan, and thank you for playing that video, we'll get the next one ready. Afghanistan, the Afghan people, and I'll expand on this in a future episode, the Afghan people were held hostage. The Afghan people were held hostage. You got to take into account that Afghanistan was invaded by Russians that pillaged, that raped, that murdered people, defenseless civilians. And so you can look at movies like Rambo 3. Of course, they don't play Rambo 3 very often, do they? On the USA Network or other cable networks, because there's compassion for the Afghan people in that particular situation. They're being invaded by the Russians that want their country. It was strategic for the Russians to try to capture Afghanistan. The people of Afghanistan were not accused of terrorism by the Russian people. Well, they may have, but there was nothing going on. They had land, they had resources, they had a strategic spot in Central Asia. And now America has it, but you watch, China is set to inherit Afghanistan. No doubt about it. And you're going to see more Chinese expansion into Africa and into the Middle East as we watch the Shanghai Cooperation Organization expand. The Afghan people were held as hostages. And if you want to understand the Taliban, you have to look at the money. Where did the money come from? We know Muhammad Atta received $250,000 from the head of the ISI, which was Pakistan's intelligence. And those intelligence agencies are very much linked to the Mossad and the CIA and other Western intelligence groups. There's also information about bin Laden being an asset of China and trips to China, meetings with the CCP. All this is documented. And then when those buildings came down on 9/11, where's the steel? You know, people have been talking about, well, buildings just don't come down in seconds. That steel was exported and transplanted to the nation of China. And so there's no ability now to do a real forensic evidence investigation. But what little has been discovered, and you can watch other videos about this, they've already discovered traces of Therm-8. So the point is, if China and Russia were really against what the West is doing, they would have said something about the truth about 9/11 immediately after it happened. This whole time they've kept their mouths shut because they're in a position to profit from occupation in the Middle East. And then it came out in 2010, oh, look, we found a huge mass of lithium in Afghanistan. Oh, we just accidentally stumbled upon a massive rare earth mineral resource center. Of course, you didn't know that before they went into Afghanistan. What does lithium go into? It goes into the batteries which go into your cell phones. So we can see how there is a way that big business and industry is benefiting in multiple ways from an occupation and a presence in Afghanistan. For years, people said, what's in Afghanistan? It just doesn't make sense. They don't have this, they don't have that. Afghanistan has more than what most people realize. This news clip on a recent event that took place called Stand with the
Muslim
Prophet.
leaders and now protesters have gathered in Texas for the annual Stand with the Prophet conference. The event, of course, comes just over a week after the unspeakable terrorist attacks in Paris. Those horrific images shocking the world and reigniting the debate over radical Islam and causing controversy at that event right now in the Lone Star State. Casey Stegall is reporting live from that event in Garland, Texas. Hi, Casey.
Hi, Eric. We're about 30 minutes from the event starting, and just in the last hour and a half or so, we have really seen the crowd of protesters swell. I'm going to step out of the way and show you live pictures at the hundreds of people who are gathered outside of this conference center.
Now, we're seeing how the mainstream media is playing their role in the call to arms for people to protest, right? We've seen it with Ferguson. We've seen it with other things. Now we're seeing it with this. By the way, I lived briefly in Garland, Texas, kind of a creepy place. It's a suburb of Dallas, Texas. Okay, so these people, these Muslims that are meeting, this wasn't organized in response to the Paris attacks, okay? This is something that actually was organized well over a year ago, a year and a half ago. And they said that it was done, organized, that they're meeting to find out how they can distance themselves from ISIS. And they actually wrote a letter to ISIS, stop what you're doing, you're not real Muslims. Fox News is not reporting that. You know, despite the good work that Infowars.com has done, I see Infowars.com playing both sides of the fence to feed their growing audience, because there's spillover audience with the Glenn Beck crowd, with the Rush Limbaugh crowd, with the Michael Savage crowd. And I don't care if that's offensive to some people. I recognize that Mr. Jones has done some good work and inspired me to become an activist in my early years, but I'm going to show you some videos in a minute that I find to be a little bit disturbing and even racially charged, featuring his new videographer and reporter, Joe Biggs. Going to the next clip, real briefly, we're going to play just about a minute of audio from number 7. And this is another Fox News clip featuring the anchor that was calling for the Muslims to be killed.
Just a week after the Paris terror attacks, Muslim leaders from across America hold a conference in Texas. Their goal? To, quote, stand with the Prophet Muhammad in honor and respect. They seek to combat what they call Islamophobes in America. With me is Christiane Backer, who at the height of her career
is like one second away from
Europe's leading pop culture
into
icons
something highly demonic.
Islam. She is a speaker at the conference.
And by the way,
and Raquel Evita Saraswati,
I mean,
American Muslim writer and activist,
she's slightly tan on the right-hand side, but it almost seems as if this interview is, well, it's Fox News. It just comes across as a little bit staged, and it doesn't seem like the real issues that they should be talking about are being talked about.
Killing in the name of Allah.
And we see a lot of people that are cross-examined. Why are people killing in the name of Allah? Thank you for playing that. They keep trying to drum it into people's heads. And we'll go ahead and end that, because we have many videos to go through. We'll get the next video ready, which is video number 8.
What is the purpose of the conference?
Okay, so what I want to note about that is they keep telling people over and over and over, Muslims are ordered to kill people. Let me try to approach you with some common sense thinking. So they say there's 1 billion Muslims, as some people love to say, Muslims. 1 billion Muslims. Okay. How many times in your life have you been under attack by Muslims? I know that you're being groped at the airport and you're being told that all these people are after you, but how many times in your own life have you been attacked by a Muslim? Now, comparing a Muslim to a Jehovah's Witness or a Christian, how many times have you had a Muslim force their religion down your throat? Now, I know what it's like briefly when I lived with my dad's family for a couple of years, but for the most part, even myself, I haven't had to deal with that. It's always been Christians, and it's always been Jehovah's Witnesses. And for the most part, for those that don't know, the demographic of my audience seems to be between 40 and 80, mostly Christian, maybe some atheists, but I've never attacked Christians. But Christians are able to see some things that I'm talking about, and they interpret it in their own worldview. You know, when I talk about this coming Third World War, to some people it sounds like the Battle of Armageddon. So there are some people that are viewers of my show that over the years have wanted me to speak to you in tongues, in scriptures. And that's not what Alex Ansary does. I don't use the Bible, okay, to bring you information. I talk about real world events. Now that may sound biblical to you, but I'm not going to get on the bandwagon and speak in a religious tongue to appease my mostly Christian audience, but I appreciate your viewership. As far as how many Muslims are actually watching my show, I don't think that many, because I know that some Muslims can be judgmental. I know what it was like to be judged by my family because I chose to be independent. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be judged by some Muslims, but I'm still going to stand up and say it's wrong what's taking place in the media, because they're trying to incite people into some sort of, ooh, the Muslims are coming. They're coming to force Sharia law on us. And despite the good work that Infowars.com has done, I cannot just criticize the mainstream media and let this video slide. Go ahead and play it. This is video number 8.
Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. I'm in Garland, Texas, standing outside of the Curtis Colwell Convention Center. And as you can see over here across the street, hundreds and hundreds of people have came out here to protest the Stand with the Prophet rally that is happening here today at 5 p.m. Central. A huge group of bikers just showed up. Everyone's cheering, chanting. People have up the Jesus Charlie signs everywhere. Stand for freedom. You know, there's just tons of people out here right now, and it's growing by the minute.
And
so
he's
stay tuned
excited.
for more
He's
reports
loving it.
from
Now,
Garland,
Joe
Texas,
Biggs has
at the
served in
Stand
Afghanistan
for the
or
Proper
Iraq.
Rally. Once again, I'm
Just
Joe
because
Biggs
somebody
with
comes back from the wars and says that they're a truther and they're with the freedom movement, you know, when I hear about Adam Kokesh, for example, admitting to Jesse Ventura that he tortured people in the Middle East, and there's actually some pictures with him posing next to people with a bag over their head, you know, it makes me wonder if they truly understand how dark this is to be demonizing people from foreign lands, whether they have truly understood it or whether the things that they're saying is just simply rhetoric to push their own agenda to become more popular and get themselves a nice little space in the alternative media. It bothers me when I see people in the American conspiracy research community buy the mainstream propaganda that ISIS is currently invading the country. And we know that ISIS, these people know that ISIS, InfoWars has already reported on the fact that Mossad may have been behind the Paris attacks. There's already other people that are reporting on things. By the way, the cop that was killed in Paris, his head did not explode like a water balloon, like a watermelon. And so people are going, I'm going to use my common sense here. Something does not seem right about this story. By the way, it also seems by design that the official stories never really make sense. It's almost as if it's even more psychological warfare on us to accept the unacceptable, a pattern that I noted years ago. And we're seeing so many attempts to get us to accept the absolutely absurd. And so this should raise a really strong red flag. I'm not making accusations against InfoWars. I'm reporting on what they're reporting on and showing my concern for the accuracy of the reporting coming from Joe Biggs. Now, going to the next video, video number 9.
Hello, this is Damon Rosen reporting for The United West here in Garland, Texas. On Saturday the 17th,
this is an example of some of the people that have gone with to the Stand with the Prophet event, the protest,
convention. A group of imams from around the country, as well as John Esposito, will be there.
So he's talking about the flyers that they're handing out.
To stand with the Prophet and not insult him. Pamela Geller.
They have a misunderstanding of why they're meeting. And so thank you for playing that. We'll get the next video ready. We don't have time to play it all. There is this misunderstanding that there is this Muslim invasion and that they're coming to force Sharia law down people's throats. Now, anyone that actually is doing that needs to be followed and investigated because they may be a federal agent. They may be an FBI informant. We know that they've done this with Mark Kessler. I just played that video earlier. You can also look at CNN interviewing people like Hal Turner, who is a white supremacist talk show host. There's tons of information as to how the feds are truly operating the KKK in today's day and age. It also makes much sense that there would be an overlay between the FBI and law enforcement and the KKK. It's not really a long stretch to actually see a connection there. We also have groups like the New Black Panther Party. In 2012, Fox News was playing clips of them saying that they were going to stomp Whitey's neck. Now, I was at the RNC where Ron Paul spoke and Romney spoke. Romney got the nomination at the 2012 RNC, which was a disappointment to many people that supported Ron Paul. But Fox News and other networks amped it up. They played this clip over and over of this supposed New Black Panther Party member saying that they were going to crush Whitey. And so they did that to give them the pretext for a massive police state presence at that 2012 RNC. Now, there weren't mass arrests because there was hardly any protesters. Compared to police, I mean, there was Occupy and there were some Ron Paulers, but only one arrest, no violence. Just a massive militarized police state show of force. And they use clips like that guy saying that, you know, we're going to come and stomp on Whitey. I didn't see any black radicals at all at the 2012 RNC. So more than a few things are being fabricated and put on the air by Fox News. Going to this clip, I would be terrified to be a part of that group because you're seeing thousands of people that are terrified themselves that ISIS is here, ready to strike. Go ahead and play it. And this is all by design. You can see some signs here that say "Go home." The sign's coming up. It says "Go home." Now let me ask you a question as we watch this. The $1 billion bailout. Did ISIS, did the Muslims get that money? We'll focus on Islam and Muslims over ISIS, an asset of the CIA, Saudi Arabia, and Mossad? Are the Muslims taking your freedoms? Are the Muslims putting drones over your sky? Are the Muslims behind the Big Brother surveillance society? Are the Muslims that want a war with China? Are the Muslims involved in spying on your phone? Are the Muslims involved in putting GMO in your food and making sure you can't know what's in your food? Are the Muslims behind geoengineering? Okay. Are the Muslims behind just pick a social ill? You know, the problem with police brutality in this country and the lack of accountability in our judicial system. Are the Muslims behind that? So we are seeing this convenient scapegoat, and someone really has to be under, like, I would call it hypnosis. Anyone that doesn't see this is in a form of hypnosis, either low, moderate, or severe. But the more severe someone's in hypnosis, and we'll play the next video, the more dangerous they may be, the more likely that they themselves may be predisposed to lynching someone, to hanging someone, to a group of men raping a woman, you know, in a dark alley because she has a burqa on. You know, all these things and more are very possible in this hateful day and age. Playing the next video.
Damon Rosen reporting for the United West here in Garland, Texas at the Stand with the Prophet event. I'm here with the great Robert Spencer. And Robert, do you view this as a seminal day in American history, a day where Americans have come together and put their foot down against Islamic violence?
Absolutely, Damon. Look, this conference across the street is dedicated to eradicating Islamophobia, which really means dedicated to eradicating any honest discussion of how Islamic jihadists use the texts and teachings of Islam to justify violence and hatred.
So you're getting the point.
They have too long
Get the next video ready, please. And the next video is just going to the next one in succession. But I need to make a point about this. The media is also saying that people are becoming radicalized that have sympathy for Muslims. They're repeating this over and over and over in the news. So if you have love in your heart, if you have sympathy in your heart, if you realize that torture is wrong, they're fabricating these supposed terrorist attacks. They're fabricating these stories saying the FBI is stopping terror attacks, and they're taking people, radicalizing them themselves, and saying that they had sympathy. So they're looking for people that have sympathy on the internet and seeing if they can get people to engage in violent rhetoric. They've been doing it for years. And like I said, they do it with the new Black Panther Party. They do it with the Nazis. They do it with the Muslims. And they do it with other groups. They do it with the Black Bloc. They do it with so many different groups, all to get their agenda across, which is more control, a larger police state, and to create a climate of more hatred. So the focus is not on the New World Order. The focus is not on the government. So people are not educating themselves. They're just full of fear. And everything that they're accusing the Muslims are doing, ironically, the people doing the finger pointing are guilty of those things, and in fact, even worse. How many people have you seen protest the drone attacks in Yemen, in Afghanistan? It keeps happening, and I think it's being done on purpose. I don't believe it's an accident. It's not an accident that they're drone striking a wedding. I just want you to imagine for a second, for those of you that are looking the other way, what it might be like to actually be in a wedding in that country, and what it might actually look like to have your whole building explode. I mean, notice you don't see a whole lot of videos of like a situation like that, a cell phone video. A terrifying situation, hell on earth. How much more dark, how much more evil can you get to where you're using robots? Because that's really what this is. You want to talk about, you know, a futuristic Terminator type of reality in the future where we're personally affected, when in reality today, here and now today, we have already seen the rise of the machines. In a day and age where it's also been admitted that the U.S. drone program can be hacked by our enemies. And who's to say that that wasn't an accident? You'd think that they make their own computers that weren't made with Chinese components. But no, they actually created a whole robotic army with the potential to be hacked at a later point in time, just like our computers, just like our apples, especially our apples that are made in China. The kill switch is inside, ladies and gentlemen. And they set this whole thing up for the switch to go at any point that they want to flip the switch. Getting the next video ready now. I want to narrate this real quick. You're seeing Joe Biggs
I don't know,
talk to Fox News.
I can't give an accurate number, but the entire meeting hall is
go ahead and play it.
full.
Yeah. A couple,
200-300.
200-300?
Yeah. I'd say more than that.
Yeah. More? Okay.
Yeah.
What was the general vibe in there? What was the tone? Was there any hostility?
No.
Was there any defensiveness?
Nope, cool, calm, and collective. Everyone was very nice, walking up to us, saying hello. They had like hors d'oeuvres out on the table, bottles of water.
What kind of food?
Like egg roll type things.
Yeah, little finger foods.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hummus?
No, there was a rice pudding there or something.
Rice pudding?
Yeah.
Was it tasty?
I did not try that.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay, play 13 without audio. Okay, so Joe Biggs here is being groped by the TSA, and he's making constant references. Why is the focus on me? Shouldn't it be on the border? Shouldn't it be on ISIS? Skip ahead a little bit and play it.
No, sir. Threat is imminent right now. As you could just see, I had to go through the groping process by the TSA, which quite frankly disturbs me, pisses me off, and makes my stomach unsettled. But that's another story. What I don't like is the double standard. We have these undocumented aliens who are allowed to fly without going through the TSA, without needing ID. Meanwhile, I asked the guy, I said, what does this even do to help secure our borders? He didn't even have an answer. He kept just ignoring it. I had to keep continuously asking him.
But my
said,
point is how we're in a climate of fear now. Thank you for playing that. Let's get the next video ready, which is video number 14. My point is that we live in a day and age where someone could go, well, that person doesn't look white enough, and that person's certainly not black. They could be Hispanic, which means they could be an illegal, or they can be a Persian, which means they possibly could be connected. I'm not talking about some of my personal information tonight, but now there's a lot of things people do not understand about ancient Afghanistan, including Sufism, which is a much more mystical, metaphysical, spiritual interpretation of Islam. And there is a 11th century ancestor of mine known as Abdullah Ansari with an I. You can read more about him on Wikipedia. I will be talking about him and reading his poetry in the future. It is sad to see whole civilizations that have left behind so many beautiful monuments and buildings and statues and writings, to see it defecated on by today's society. Whole groups of people being lumped into the box of radical Islam, even though some of our ancestors were not radicals, and in fact spoke against and wrote against the tyranny of their day, which my ancestor did. Khwaja Abdullah Ansari, who lived in Herat, Afghanistan, in solitude, speaking against the wealthy and powerful that were using Islam to control the people. Sufi Islam is about a direct connection with God. It's seeking that direct understanding of the way that God works in our world. That's anything but radical. It's very spiritual, and it's very out there for some people. So are some New Agers. So are some spiritualists to people that don't believe in God. I understand that. But supposedly we're about freedom of speech and freedom of religion in this country. And what you're seeing right now is a demonization of a whole group of people. Now, going to this next video, this might as well be Fox News, but Infowars.com, telling you that ISIS is about to strike the United States at any moment in time, and that we're vulnerable, that 90% of the American people are vulnerable of being killed by ISIS if they take down our grid. Go ahead and play the audio.
Right behind me, all across the Middle East, they're able to take these over, and they are now making tons and tons of money. Now, the reason they picked Juarez could be a strategic move. This is just right across the border. Juarez is no more than a few miles to my left. Now, we also have, many other buildings in this area that we've talked about. We have the military base. FBI has an office. But those are just things to think about, whether or not that's why they picked this spot. But there's another really interesting article out right now in the Washington Examiner. So if you would like to take a look, it says, new ISIS threat, America's electric grid, blackout could kill 9 out of 10 people. This article came out today, so I encourage you to go check it out. Now, there's some interesting points in here. One of the leading experts on the grid said inadequate grid security and a porous U.S.-Mexico border and fragile transmission systems make the electric grid a target for ISIS. said Peter Pry. And like I said, he is one of the leading
So talk about a
experts
distortion.
on the grid.
Talk about a distortion of reality,
By
because
one
our grid
estimate,
is
should
vulnerable.
the power go out and stay out for over a year,
Killing
9
the
out of 10
audio,
Americans would likely
getting the
perish.
next video ready, locked and loaded, ready to fire like a rocket into space. Our grid is vulnerable from the king of all solar flares. And when that happens, if that happens, which real science can verify, then yes, 9 out of 10 Americans are vulnerable of dying. But if anything does happen with ISIS and multiple terror attacks going off in the United States, is being designed that way. They're leaving the border wide open on purpose. It's being allowed to happen. So on one side, they're telling the truth. On the other side, for their growing audience from the Beck, Limbaugh, and Savage camp, they're distorting and actually promoting more fear. And it seems that Joe Biggs is there to play that role. Playing the next video quickly. Scrolling forward.
We know our government has created and funded ISIS, so whether or not this is a real threat or a false flag, the globalists are now one step closer to their end game, stripping us of all our liberties. So we dress up like an ISIS jihadi to be as obvious as possible, to show and to illustrate just how wide open the border really is.
But you just had to dress up like a jihadi, didn't you? Didn't you? Haven't we seen the United States do enough of this? I worked with a guy briefly at Ruth Chris Steakhouse that got a job in Hollywood, and he was paid by Hollywood to stand in front of a green screen and go Allah Akbar holding an AK-47. He doesn't know whether he was featured in a movie or not. But the guy was kind of creeped out when he came back to Portland. He did valet at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse while I was busing there. And he told me that they hired him to dress up like a jihadi. And he was creeped out, and he was afraid morally. He was afraid he did something wrong because he did not know where that footage was going or how it was going to be used. Haven't you seen Wag the Dog? Has anybody heard of the movie Wag the Dog? Okay, so that's what I'm getting at, and that's why this creeps me out.
Thank you, Obama, for leaving your southern borders open so ISIS can terrorize America.
So
ISIS thanks you, President Obama.
We played a lot of really good videos tonight. Thank you.
For
Cut
Sharia
it.
law.
We only got a few minutes left. Now let's go to that speech, the devil's deception in the New World Order. We're going to skip those videos. We're going to go to the locked and loaded video relating to the devil's deception in the New World Order. It's the one on YouTube. And this is something that has played on Access TV recently. You're often hearing disinformation about what the Muslims are saying. Here's a Muslim in Canada giving a very important speech. And if you want to watch it in full, online, again, it's called The Devil's Deception in the New World.
And then we look at the Muslim world. And we see in the past 50 years, we see massive genocides taking place. We see Palestinians driven out of their land. We see people throughout Africa living under tyrants financed by industrialized nations. We see wholesale murder and genocide. And now with technology, you even see the bodies of the people in Kosovo, in Bosnia, in Kashmir. You see it with your own eyes. We witnessed this being slaughtered all over the planet. Thousands of people mercilessly being killed. And then September 11th, an event that took place that with the use of technology, with people's minds being connected together by the electronic technology, it becomes a worldwide event. And no doubt it was a horrendous event. But there are also horrendous events that took place in Rwanda and Cambodia and Vietnam and in other parts of the world. And so the September 11th took place. And we as Muslims watched this thing happen. And we said, no, don't let them blame this on us. They blamed Oklahoma City on us. Only by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some information got out and they realized it wasn't a Middle Eastern character, that it was one of their own right-wing Johnny Appleseeds, one of their own homeboys who carried it out. But this event took place, and we did not, I want to make it categorically clear, we did not enjoy this event. It is not an Islamic event. And you will be surprised to know that there is a masjid. There was a masjid in the trade center, in the Twin Towers. Over 1,500 people used to make Salatul Jum'ah. And we know that if 1,500 people made Jum'ah, how many didn't make the Salat? You know our community. So that means there were thousands of Muslims inside of that building who also perished. And up until now, we have received no conclusive evidence, only circumstantial evidence, but nothing conclusive. And they tell us that these young Arabs carried this thing out. And then we saw in Saudi Arabia, some of the people actually came, their name was on the list, and they went to the embassy and said, I'm alive. I didn't do it, man. I'm right here. Okay? No. Then they say, no, they carried it out, and these so-called religious extremists, before they do it, they're drinking alcohol the night before, getting drunk, and then they're going to sacrifice themselves for Allah. He writes a letter which so conveniently is found, and then it says, Bismillah wa bismi nafsi wa ailati, in the name of Allah, in the name of myself, in the name of my family. Nobody writes like this. This is a strange situation.
And not only that, and thank you for playing that.
And then the building.
There was also the famous phone call. Hello, Mom? Mom? Hello? Hello, Mom? You know, completely technologically at that time impossible to call your mommy from the plane, but they got America to believe it. The more absurd the lie is believed, the more they attempt to get away from, and these shock tests keep taking place, see if they can get people to respond. And if they don't respond a certain way, then they try something else. It's not so much about, demolishing or exterminating one particular so-called enemy, but to keep things negative and warlike and violent on the planet.
Well, I'm impressed. I mean, you're saying you're fully committed. There's no future if we don't take this country back. Donald Trump, I hope you can help uncripple America. Thank you so much, sir. You will be attacked for coming on, and we know you know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Donald Trump overall is right about saying that we need to ban Muslims coming into the nation until we get the visa situation and the problem handled, because upwards of 25% that have been polled say that they want to sympathize with ISIS or conduct violent acts in Europe and the United States.
Because upwards of 25% that have been polled say that they want to sympathize with ISIS or conduct violent acts in Europe and the United States.
All these other Muslim leaders saying they are weak. The Americans, the Europeans, take them, take their women, take them now. Your women are... I mean, you can't even make up that stereotype. We are coming, weak Europeans, for your women. We will have them. They will soon wear the hijab and will do as we say. Your women are... Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! Allah, I punch you in the nose, I pull dress off. Allah Akbar. You stupid Americans.
They've actually been building this up for some time. Notice the timing of all this, the shooting in Orlando, how a group is targeted that already feels like it's a targeted group. So now they can turn the homosexual population, what members of it, which are easily mind controlled, that is, against a whole group of people. I think a lot of the stories about Americans joining ISIS are completely false. There aren't enough Americans that are actually questioning how true the stuff actually is. As we see more and more Middle Eastern people demonized, as we see more Middle Eastern countries attacked, millions of victims of war, people say stupid things, no wonder why they hate us. Well, actually, there's plenty of Middle Eastern immigrants that love the United States, and I say that in a good way, but also in a Stockholm syndrome, there are many that love it in an almost a manic way. Like, don't hurt me. We seriously love you and you're American pie. And it's really sad that those Middle Eastern immigrants that have come here, that have earned master's degrees, that have gone on to work for the military, that are working most of their lives in some industry or another, it's very sad that a lot of Americans are starting to look at people from other countries in a certain light. And we've gone how many years without a real genuine terror attack against the United States? Since 9/11? Well, officially, that's changed now, as they're calling it the biggest terror attack in U.S. history. My friend said, well, maybe you're going to have to go into hiding in 7 to 10 years in the event of some sort of a Holocaust. And that's actually what they are telegraphing. They are telegraphing that some sort of a roundup or a Holocaust, some sort of targeting of Middle Eastern people. Who knows, maybe they'll attack people by name, or label people by name, or round people up by name, or country of birth, or father's country of birth. You know, there aren't enough people out there that actually have empathy for other human beings, and that's what this is really about. This is really about, you know, on one level, they have some Americans terrorized, and, you know, there are people texting their children going, oh my God, we hear that ISIS is invading, you need to get well armed. And it's really sad to know and be told this, that certain mothers out there of certain younger people that I know have contacted them via text and email saying ISIS is coming, the TV is telling us. Well, how does someone actually know if someone's a member of ISIS in their community? Well, maybe they could be saying Allah Akbar, signifying they're a Muslim, or maybe they are a darker skinned individual, maybe unshaven, maybe someone that looks suspicious. And the fact of the matter is, this is happening. The real people that are being terrorized, despite the susceptible minds of Americans that have allowed themselves to be terrorized by fake news, it's really the people that live in a day and age where they could be targeted based on their name, their religion, their friends, their wife, their husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, family, things of that nature. And it's not even just about Middle Eastern people. You know, you have a multicultural country, whether you like that or not, where there are darker skinned individuals running around all over the place. One thing that I thought of when I was in high school, briefly living in Northern Virginia outside Washington, D.C., during that brief period when I had to live with my father's family, you know, I noticed the similarity in appearance between some Middle Eastern people, especially youth and teenagers, between some of those people descending from those countries and Hispanics. And the gray area between specifically some Hispanics and some people from India. And actually wondering, you know, noticing as I grew up and got a chance to see women, other than just straight, regular white women, but women from other parts of the world, how beautiful some of them were. And I remember one girl trying to figure out whether she was Hispanic or East Indian, and not really knowing, and seeing how she really could be both. Now, that's what I'm going to leave you with now. We are entering a very dangerous time in American history, where a segment of the population that we are in, some of you are in that segment of the population, but for some reason you're watching this channel, that are convinced that Muslims are invading America through the form of ISIS, pretty much discounting completely all the documented information about intelligence agencies creating some of these groups. And it's funny, in a day and age where people don't like how patriots and people in the liberty movement and, quote, sovereign citizens are being demonized by DHS, they don't seem to have a problem with the way Trump and others speak about a whole group of people. So now that we've had the Orlando shootings, what you really need to know is that the real people that are being terrorized, they're being affected right now emotionally, not even so much physically right now, but emotionally with fear, are people afraid that they may fit the profile in a day and age where they've blurred the lines between Middle Eastern immigrant and even Middle Eastern and ISIS. a creation of the CIA and other linked intelligence groups. Will this actually lead to a roundup and a Holocaust, which could then lead to other things? Or are they desensitizing Americans to the fake invasion, the fake Middle Eastern invasion, to confuse them, traumatize them, terrify them, but ultimately distract them from the other greater military, foreign military invasion, i.e. China, Russia, others? So is this a giant distraction to take people away from the real potential threats that some of us speak of that could be coming down the line? And could they use a Holocaust situation, rounding people up by name, to force the world to demand foreign military intervention in American policies? I don't have a crystal ball, but I think we're going to find out in the next decade. 9th, 2017, I think this is going to be a powerful video that is more on the solution side of things, and it's only going to pertain to, say, a minority of my audience, but it pertains to millions of people that are on the planet, and I hope to reach those people. See, there's a lot of us that are, we're in a box of what could be considered non-white, regardless of who, you know, our mother may have been or our father may have been, and we were born with more melatonin in the skin, and some of us have features that are Middle Eastern, either because they just look Middle Eastern, and that could be Latinos and other Southeast Asians, and then people from East India. People may fear that they're Muslims because of this witch hunt, people confusing race and religion. And now people calling for the Muslims to be put in the camps, for the Muslims to be put in the ovens. This is being said now. And I think what there needs to be is a greater unity amongst the people. The problem that I've faced, that others are facing, is a sense of judgment, being called crazy, paranoid, or delusional if our Middle Eastern names and or appearances could be perceived as Muslim-like. There's a lot of denial in our country, and it's gotten in the way of friendship. For those of us that are in those unique situations, to explain to people, hey, no, I'm not saying all people are racist. I'm saying that there's a very large movement, though, and people may disagree with the idea that there is a conspiracy or a plot to turn the world against a certain genetics, even a supernatural component, right? Those are my personal views, though. I don't like being called crazy. Those are my views. Something's going on, and they're using this anti-Islamophobia thing as a front for something greater. So people that are potential targets of whatever hypothetically could be going on, they need to be able to share. See, there's a big backlash against social justice warrior stuff and things like safe spaces, but really it seems like there is no safe space for real, genuine minorities that, you know, when you click the box and it's asking you your ethnicity, you may not feel that you're white or Caucasian, or that you're this, that, and that you're nothing but other, because of the way that this society treats people with genetics from certain parts of the world. And people talk about white genocide. We're in a society now where a lot of people are pretty aggressive about asking about your ethnicity. And they feel empowered. It's not a Trump thing, it's a thing in general. And they feel that it's weird, that it's crazy if someone gets defensive about it. I think there's probably millions of people like me that are going through this. Of course, people of even non-Middle Eastern descent that are just simply brown or tan. You know, I've seen videos of Latinos attacked that have been called terrorists. And so it's not difficult to predict these things. You don't need a crystal ball. I think that someone needs to not be programmed and not be defensive. So I don't know what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting unity. First of all, amongst all people with a heart, to push this evil back. I'm asking for open-mindedness, for people to see the evil in this. The sinister evil in this, that's organized, that's using social media, that's using YouTube, You know, they could steer away from the word conspiracy, but it certainly is happening. And I'm not putting my finger at the Jews or the white man either, despite the fact that it's happening, because I think that this is about greater global control and a culling of an aspect of the population. There's a great evil that is taking place. I see it as a sacrifice. And they have literally turned the Hispanic man, the black man, the white man against the Middle Eastern human. Okay, what about all of these Middle Eastern or ethnic Americans that aren't Muslims? And then you see these leftist publications that are acting like they want to combat Islamophobia, but they keep using Islam as a term. So they, like the right, they're co-signing the idea of describing the race of people by using the word Islam or Muslim. And what that does is lump people into a box that a lot of us aren't a part of. You see, the difference between Muslims and non-Muslims is pretty simple, and I kind of touched on it in a previous video. But I suspect why there isn't more people of in particular Muslims of Middle Eastern descent on YouTube like myself, expressing themselves and their pain and their sorrow. They don't have the same type of alienation that I do as a non-Muslim of Afghan descent, because their culture apparently believes in exiling people that go against the father's wishes or talk back. And I think that's unfortunate in a day and age where their culture is already being demonized. It seems unintelligent to continue along the same path that's really going to alienate people that would help you. I've spoken up for Muslims, and I have said that people like my father's family are not like the type that's being portrayed. And I see no appreciation from them. So there's a cold-heartedness with apparently Muslim immigrants and communities that have not let go of their alpha male domination issues. And I don't believe that's of God. I believe that's of Shaitan. And so that's what they consider to be offensive from Alex Ansary, is like a challenge to their belief systems or things that are in the Quran. And it's unfortunate. In that case, I think we're really looking at a case of religion getting in the way of these people, allowing others to help them. Right? A whole opening up of the heart, an appreciation. So those of us that aren't religiously motivated, but we represent various ethnicities, and we don't believe that we're, that we should kill ourselves, that we're inferior. In fact, there's a lot of intellectualism. I look at my father's cousin, Tamim Ansary. He's the most famous Afghan-American writer. He's the son of a white mother and the son of an Afghan father. That's the genetic combination that I am. Germanic on one side, Afghan on the other. And so when I look at that and I see others of talent, I think that we're being boxed in, and we've been left isolated by our white peers and friends that feel offended when we talk about the racism. They feel like they're being attacked. And we're asking them, we're begging them to let go of their programming and just let us share. And on the other end of things, if we are non-Muslim, but genetically from that part of the world, we're living in the modern day America where we're not connected to that nurturing side. And see, that's what a lot of Muslims, my next point, they get to enjoy. Those big plates of food and kebab and dance and laughing because they accept each other. Because they're all the same kin, similar bloodline and religious beliefs. And, I think that it's subconscious. But I think that many perceived racists, if you will, are guilty of banishing out the tribal members or the individuals that are less like them, that view God or the Creator in a different way, and have been split with another. It's not just white supremacy that's obsessed with maintaining the bloodline as pure. I think this might be kind of an obsession with my dad's family, the Ansarys, right? Because of their perception of it being somewhat royal on a particular level. And they know what I mean. And I think that both black supremacists, white supremacists, ancillary supremacists, I think they're out of touch with biology. And how when someone goes out of a dominant bloodline, you know, you really get the best of both. And really there's history in our DNA. And so when there's a lot of various histories in one's DNA, it almost seems like there's greater access to knowledge and information. But again, this is viewed as mystical, un-Islamic thinking. So getting back to our main topic, right, and using that as an example, and my life story book is going to get detailed. I'm going to write a lot more and get more detailed. I would also add that there's a lot of judgment towards those of us that are genuine individuals on the spiritual quest. In a world of atheism and dominant religions, there's a lot of evil that seems to be pointed at those of us that for whatever reason we're looking for direct knowledge from God itself. Or we're looking at knowledge in the real world. Maybe we're political activists. Maybe we're going against the grain. We're challenging the man in our own way, or all the above. And we're going off grid, and I think that kind of expresses my life. And I'm constantly looking at this thing which the Creator created, which is the sun. And I talk about its connect to our spirit. This is not paganism. This is not evil. This is not haram. But yet these perceptions lead some of us that are on the path of greater knowledge and consciousness, we're demonized and we're left alone. And I think that I need to signify some sort of a signal. There may be more people just like me in the next 5 or 10 years that literally have Middle Eastern and Anglo-Saxon genetics, and they could be targets of white supremacy, but they could be, especially in Europe, they already are now, but they could be born especially gifted. Tamim Ansari came before me and established himself as a writer with his book, East of Kabul, West of New York, I believe. I followed him. I started Outside the Box TV, and I've been reaching the people that I've been able to reach as Tamim has reached the people that he has needed to reach. And there's going to be other people like us that are going to be coming later. There may be an agenda to stop that from taking place, but it may already be too late. I do feel like I'm a new bloodline to the earth, and it does feel similar to a Native American, especially with me having this experience in North America. With that, I'm going to conclude. Again, the calling for unity of people that are going through this experience of not wanting to be marginalized based on their appearance as a member of a religion. Muslims, they have the responsibility to have each other's back to defend themselves because they've already exiled their non-Muslim family members. We have to now focus on representing ourselves as something other than other. Those of us that are non-Muslim but could be put inside that box. We have to find a way to work together and share our stories to the rest of the world, because history will look back at our life experiences during this particular moment in time, space, reality. And those few people that have known me over the period of several decades know how far I have come on my own. When 9/11 happened, I was getting off heroin. That brief spell was only several years. I began to tap into a sense of, in my understanding, a sensitivity to what was going on over there, and somehow or another I was reacting to it in an adverse manner. The tribulations that I've gone through are deep because not only have I seen the people of my father's country, the country itself, demonized by the West and blamed for 9/11, I have seen my father and his family. That means all cousins, all other relatives. Since I've embarked and I've gone outside the box and I've been working to bring awareness to audiences in the West regarding the Middle Eastern situation. Not as an expert, but to remind people that there is a genocide going on. I have heard nothing from them. And so I've survived the wound of not only what the world has done to Afghanistan, but one could argue what my father and his family have done to me. And out of love and compassion and a desire to share with others what is happening to Afghanistan, I will, in my lifetime, present to the world a deeper investigation, analysis, report, presentation on what has been going on there the last several decades with both the Russia and the West destabilizing Afghanistan by design. You know, I've mentioned the censorship on YouTube and certain keywords resulting in certain videos being demonetized, like Afghanistan, like refugee, like foreign troops, even Chinese threat. A lot of things that are going on right now that should be talked about aren't being talked about. And I'll tell you what, after 9/11 happened and the smoke began to clear, so to speak, my head began to clear, and the problems that were my problems prior were no longer my problems. I was now on a mission to expose that the truth about 9/11 is very different than what we've been told, and I don't think it's simply been an inside job. There are other forces outside the United States that probably collaborated with forces within our own government. The point is, I took it upon myself out of compassion for those people and a land that I've never seen, but yet soldiers have. Men that have killed, women that have killed, that have stepped upon that land and murdered, in many cases, innocent individuals that had nothing to do with 9/11, and in many cases, nothing to do with the Taliban. And in many cases, people don't know the Taliban and the financial ties to Pakistan and the links between the CIA and the ISI, Pakistan's intelligence. A lot of people don't want to go there, including my father. So as the smoke cleared after 9/11, keep a very long story short because I just want you to get the meat of this. My father, who you, by the way, will now see in the picture before you. This is my father. And as I've said many times before in the past, the dynamic between myself and my father is something akin to Luke Skywalker battling Darth Vader. My father, in the same year that I started Outside the Box TV, became a translator for the U.S. government through a private corporation. And so this particular corporation and other groups that he's worked for, I mean, you're talking CENTCOM, you're talking at a level to where there's no way that my father hasn't come across the truth, what I believe to be the truth, or perhaps someone being tortured or forced to confess something that they didn't even do. And you would think that someone would ask, how does someone live with that or live with themselves? I'll tell you what, it hasn't been easy being in my shoes, but I've been on this road for a long time on my own. And I'm going to briefly tell you, and I've talked about this in previous videos, you know, I grew up with my mother. I didn't grow up in an Islamic household. And my father adopted to this nation a lot of positive things about this culture. He also, you know, alcoholism in particular, he became affected by aspects of this culture that I would say are not so conscious. He also brought some beautiful things from his culture regarding music and regarding food, his ability to cook. But before 9/11 even happened, you know, and my father was the weekend dad, he had already begun to sabotage his relationship with me through his uncontrollable temper. And so there's a wound there and a story there that I'll elaborate on later. And I lived with my dad for 2 years between 1995 and 1998, almost 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years, at my mother's request. And I'm not saying that in anger towards her. In retrospect, I learned a lot about my father's family from that experience. The past is the past. I am here now at the age of 37, looking back in the brief time I lived with my family. You're not dealing with radical Muslims. We were dealing with people that were worshiping the U.S. educational school system. Go out and get a job. Go out and get straight A's. They were radical in the U.S. college system sense. And judgmental, though, with regards to my open-minded nature, martial arts, Buddhism, meditation, all things that I was really into as a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old. All things that were, for some reason, very offensive to my father. So, when my father did have the opportunity to have custody, things were incredibly psychotic. And there were 6 or 7 physical confrontation situations. And in the end, to make a long story short, several years before 9/11 even happened, 1998, I'm moving out of the house in Portland after I get my father to bring us back from Virginia to the Portland area. My mother was already in New York by that time. So it was just me and my father in Portland. And he remarried a woman from his country, and he left for the East Coast to where his other relatives live. In the Virginia area, right outside Washington, D.C. So these were always system boys and girls. These answeries. So I was always seen as an outsider, too American for them. It's funny to see how they've done that and played that card, and yet they voted for American candidates. They have supported the U.S. system. They have supported U.S. imperialism as Afghans. They have supported the U.S. occupation of Afghanistan as Afghans, simply because of the U.S. stance with Russia. It's like the Afghans being played against each other. So there's a deeper story there, but from what you're probably able to gather in just what I'm putting up now, there's a lot of pain between myself and my father regarding his psychotic nature and him not correcting that. And then for some reason, it hitting me like a ton of bricks, maybe spiritually, why it always seems like my dad had a demon in him. The way he tried to choke me and hurt me, it was like there was an evil in him. And the same year, I kick off with Outside the Box TV in 2005, doing 9/11 truth discussions. My father is working at places like Guantanamo Bay. And he's, does he ever have a flashback to the day he got up in my face when I was 16 saying, when I'm hitting the heavy bag, anybody can be Rambo. Takes a real man to get an education. And to be physically intimidating to your son and destroy your relationship with your son, to then work alongside U.S. troops to when they're not killing Afghans, they're doing MMA. So my father continues to this day, and the Ansari family stays away from me, and I think they do so out of fear because I'm considered to be a conspiracy theorist, and I believe they suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. And I want them, however, one day to be proud of me, and I want them to know that this half-Afghan did something to raise consciousness within this continent with regards to what is being done to their homeland. I want them to know how much I cared, despite the fact that they turned their back on me for being a non-Muslim and being unable to program me at the age of 16 to be submissive to them in every way, shape, or form, including my father. And as I said in a recent video, their religion, more so than Islam, was my father being the head of the household, as I don't really see their actions all that Islamic. Really. Nor a true appreciation for the Creator. I see myself as someone very different, and thus, when people propagate disinformation about genetic disposition to be just like your father or this, that, and the other, it's very offensive to me. Because while I share certain features, and my skin tone is much darker than that of my mother and my mother's family, that is just simply a physical characteristic that has passed over. The very things that people think are almost bred into someone, as if someone is being born a Muslim, which is ridiculous. These things are very hurtful that I'm going through in this society today. And as I mentioned periodically when this issue comes up, that pain is compounded by the reality that I will tell the world to back off, stop demonizing all Muslims, yet at the same time, wholeheartedly, my father's family has turned their back on me. Every single answer. It's as if a memo went out. It's as if that family is controlled by some sort of a Borg that I do not serve. And I suspect there may be more truth than fiction to this idea. But as we close up here and we look at the photo albums, I reflect on my father and his experiences in America when he first came here during the age of Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac, the many American girlfriends that he had, a period in which the Afghan was not considered the enemy. As Reagan said, the Afghans are our friends, as Russia invaded and the U.S. and Russia really had a proxy war to weaken Afghanistan. That's what I suspect, which I wish more Afghans understood. Then they would maybe cease and desist from taking sides and taking money from the U.S. government. So I felt there's a burden. If you see something, say something, as they say. If you have knowledge, information about a particular topic, it could be said that it should be shared. And so, in the face of danger, knowing that I live during times in which this society is being propagandized to view the Afghans as subhuman, I find it interesting that there's a half Afghan before you now who's one of the few Americans warning you about World War III and threats to America. In a country to where I see my predominantly European alternative media counterparts, for some reason, many of them are in this land of disinformation, pushing the false Islamic invasion meme, and for some reason showing at the same time no compassion. The people like me that have given it everything. And so I realize this is spiritual warfare. And that I don't think it's an accident for a soul to pick a combination of genetics and come in during a particular time and era where there's so much fear and danger and witch hunts, but to come in to a time-space reality with like a database, a gold mine of information. And so this lifetime of all lifetimes is a very unique lifetime for me to be living. And just to look at just the strangeness of this world, like, oh my God, that's my father? That's my father? Where is there any behavioral genetic disposition? And so it's like I'm waking up to a predominant mythos of our day and age, which racism is based on. And seeking to really bring the concept of soul into this conversation. So these have been some contemplations about my father. There's things I've alluded to. There's probably things you want to know more about. You know, again, those brief years I lived with my father, 1996 to 1998. And I'm going to save that for a book. But for now, this was good to get off my chest. I really wanted to share this. And share these photos, including photos of my childhood, in which the father that I knew then, when he was the weekend dad, was a much kinder man during the early 80s, mid-80s era, which was a very... The last thing that we want to see is a Muslim false flag, especially in some of these sanctuary cities. We look at Portland, for example. We look at Seattle, Washington, for example. They're suing the federal government. They're suing Donald Trump. And because we've seen events in the past, even in some of these cities like Portland, which I'll mention in just a moment, The concern is there, especially considering the fact that we have this predictive programming to look at from the year 2009. Now, some of you may have already heard about Operation Blackjack. For those that haven't, this video is going to be a summary of that. In the summer of 2009, the British publication The Telegraph put out a comic strip. No one knew who the author was of the comic strip, or, well, you know, if there was some sort of a warning behind it. Who was behind the actual comic strip that went viral in 2009 that was published by the London Telegraph? It depicted multiple terror attacks going off in multiple cities and the world falling into chaos afterwards. Here's what's chilling. It's the countries involved in the global conflict with the United States. Syria is one of those countries mentioned. Iran is one of those countries mentioned. See, there's a lot of things that I've seen other people put out in the alternative media, and I've seen how sensationalism sells. And I saw for a while there's a fair amount of sensationalism around this story, and because there were some dates used in the actual comic strip. The terror attacks go down on June 22nd. So people were speculating whether or not 2009 or 2010 would be the year for a false flag terror attack that would be blamed on Islamic extremists. Fast forward to 2017, there are many people that were exposed to this information in the past that behave like they've forgotten. There's certainly a lot of selective memory taking place. And there's many people now that think that they're independent in their mindset that are absolutely terrified of Muslims. Being that this comic strip came out in 2009, and it features nations that we may be going to war with now or are waging war on. We look at Donald Trump and his 59 Tomahawk strikes on Syria. We look at all this fear regarding ISIS. We just came out of a period where people were saying 1 out of 4 Syrian refugees had pledged their allegiance to ISIS. And people like myself were saying, whoa, whoa, this is out of control. 1 out of 4? Are you freaking kidding me? But people repeated it anyways. And so it seems right now this is what concerns me. So I'm not predicting anything. I don't want to see this happen. But it's because I'm concerned that I feel a need to bring you this video. What I'm going to do right now is just mention a few facts in between showing you individual slides, and I'm not going to show you all the slides. You can go online and you can type in Operation Blackjack, and you can watch this from the beginning. And there's references to a world government, a North American Union. And at that time in 2009, of course, that was the buzz, as well as concerns about an Amero. It's clear that whoever wrote that at that time was playing into certain pop culture conspiracy, pop culture mythos and concerns. In addition with perhaps some clues. The problem is we just don't know the true origins. So it is called Operation Blackjack. There's many YouTubes that you can find. I should probably mention the names of the cities, other than Portland, Oregon, that were depicted as being nuked. First London, then New York City, then Washington, D.C., then Toronto, then Mexico City, Portland, and Los Angeles. Now, right now, there is a drill taking place called Operation Gotham. And while some people are concerned about maybe the drill going live, this is a common concern. There's other reasons why they do drills. They're preparing for something larger, I feel, and I've said for years. In 2007, Portland, Oregon saw what I call a zombie apocalypse drill, where they literally ran a drill on how the federal government would respond to an Al-Qaeda terror attack. That drill came several years before this comic strip. In 2008, 1 year after this Top Off 4 drill, which you can learn more about online, all of a sudden black helicopters started swarming Portland, Oregon. People like myself and Clyde Lewis, who at that time was doing a show at Dante's, were discussing this with our audience, that this was not normal for Portland, but it was obviously the new norm, and it's become the new norm in places like Portland, where I used to live, and elsewhere, where drones above American cities are now commonplace. It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's no longer news. It's the new normal. What's interesting about also the timing with the release of Operation Blackjack in Portland is mentioned, right, as one of these cities that's hit with a terror attack. A real supposed attempted terror attack was taking place just a year later in 2010, only it was set up by the FBI. And you've heard me reference this before. I'm going to read an article, part of an article here from groundzeromedia.org, Clyde Lewis's site. Clyde Lewis, and we don't agree on everything, but he did a good job at connecting a lot of dots regarding Operation Blackjack. He writes, back in 2009, I stumbled upon a bit of predictive programming in the British Telegraph. It was called Operation Blackjack, and it was a dark graphic depiction of some fictitious terror spree that would simultaneously throw the world into chaos. The terror was delivered through the delivering of bombs in white vans. This is a specific detail that ends up kind of being eerie when you find out about what the FBI tried to set this guy up to do just a year later. So, white vans full of bombs are going off in different parts of the world, right? Supposedly set by ISIS. Of course, ISIS wasn't really officially around then, just radical terrorists. First, the UK is devastated by a dirty nuke, and then many North American cities are hit by bombs in white vans. The bombs are encased in 55-gallon drums and driven to sites and left to explode. In the Top Off 4 drill in Portland, Oregon, that was a simulated response specifically to a dirty bomb attack. And by the way, the governor of Oregon at that time, Kulingoski, you can see the clip on Willamette Week. He talks about being incapacitated in some way. So the only thing I need to be concerned about is what they put the little rubber gloves on. The former governor likened himself to a comedian, right? It's all just fun and jokes. And this dirty nuke drill in Portland was a drill in which they recruited young teenage girls from the theater classes all across Portland to dress up and play like zombies. Yes, pretty little attractive young zombies with pieces of plastic that look like glass taped to their face. Talk about got to be careful what you focus on. That kind of became my motto throughout the whole period in Top Off 4, in which I did cover that exercise as I was given a press pass. Talk about being careful about what you focus your attention and awareness on. How could this go wrong? And it was like Night of the Living Dead. So Clyde Lewis continues to discuss as terrorists drive their bombs in white vans to areas of each city and wait for the order to detonate. With regards to Portland, Oregon, terrorist operatives in Portland set off a bomb in the middle of the city near the train station, an old natural gas building, and the Still Bridge. I was alarmed at what I saw because the entire graphic novel had longitude and latitude coordinates as to where the bomb would be detonated. There were white vans parked adjacent to the site, and I was surprised that a British newspaper knew all this. I sent out a press release asking, is a terror attack in the works for Portland? I got one response from the Willamette Week newspaper, and after I'd called back for a follow-up, no one wanted to touch the story. Usually not if it leans towards the conspiratorial and they don't understand it. So we go from the summer or early 2009 when this first hit the web and everybody was covering it, even InfoWars and over there. And in that particular galaxy, they had a whole special forum set up to try to decode what this whole predictive programming was all about. Well, here's what happened in Portland, Oregon, about a year and a half later, November 26, 2010, and it's a day known as Black Friday. And Portlanders were gathering for the traditional lighting of a Christmas tree in Pioneer Courthouse Square. What they didn't know is that a white van pulled up near the square loaded with 55-gallon drums. These were supposed to be bombs. The problem is the bombs were not wired to go off. They were duds. They were fake bombs provided by the FBI. They were used to incriminate a would-be terrorist who would later be apprehended in an area near Portland's train station. While people are just hearing about the attempted terror attack and are expressing their anger on talk shows and various blogs, it needs to be pointed out that the FBI actually protected Portland citizens from their own bomb. The FBI literally foiled their own bomb attack, one that they had set up to apprehend a suspect. The name of the man, by the way, was Mohammed Osman Mohammed, and he was a 19-year-old college student from Corvallis, Oregon, the new face of terror, as Clyde writes. According to the FBI and the mainstream narrative, Mohammed was a Somalian who plotted the deaths of people in a spectacular show of terrorism. And so the FBI was watching him for over a year. And the reason why they didn't step in and arrest Mohammed is because they were obviously running that operation. And it was after this whole situation with Mohammed Osman Mohammed that Portland rejoined the JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Prior to this whole period, the city of Portland voted to stay out of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. And so this particular event is what led to Portland joining the JTTF as it sits today, which is something that's concerned a lot of people for many years, considering the FBI's history of running surveillance on activist groups, specifically in Portland, Oregon in the 1960s and 1970s. So this was a huge event. I remember living in Portland, Oregon during this time period, and I remember talking about it on the show, and I remember noting how similar this whole thing is to the 1993 attempted bombing of the World Trade Center, where the FBI in that particular situation was involved and in the planning and the coordinating of that would-be attack. And then we have that famous clip from CBS News featuring Dan Rather regarding the FBI's involvement. So here we have FBI involvement in that. Obviously questions about 9/11, a very, very sensitive topic, especially now. When you have a city like Portland, Oregon, with Mayor Ted Wheeler, who with the mayor of Seattle, they're planning to sue Donald Trump. You have the governor of Oregon, Kate Brown, and they're supposedly standing up to Trump. This thing, I don't really know if this is a show. And I'm not going to allege that Kate Brown and Ted Wheeler are in on the show, but I don't know them personally to vouch for them and say that that's not the case. It seems convenient. Maybe they don't even know, and maybe they're completely unconscious of these things. But it's like life is imitating art. It's like the events that are happening right now in real time are mimicking a comic book strip. And then we see a comic book strip that's just back in 2009. People were just think-taking, going, who made this? What kind of a message are they sending? Is this predictive programming? And then people are going deeper, trying to decode hidden messages. And there are actually photographs in the comic strip, and people are trying to figure out where those photographs were. People are speculating, did the government put this out? And why would the government put this out? So again, multiple terror attacks. Portland being mentioned, a city that hosted Top Off 4 and was swarmed by black helicopters and has rejoined the JTTF and is one of these sanctuary cities, and it's a West Coast city. You see a lot of people out there seeing the anti-Trump movement, they're like, that city needs to get nuked. You have Ann Coulter talking about Trump needs to strike North Korea. Seattle's worth sacrificing. Screw those people. That's horrific. Would they sacrifice a West Coast city for World War III? So these are the thoughts that I want to share with you. And let us hope that it does not come to fruition. And there are periods in which there's an increase in violent attacks, and you might see an increase in people doing self-defense courses and different information is shared. I'm going to give you some of my ideas. We're obviously not going to be doing a whole lot of self-defense, although I think I have enough space here that I'm actually going to verbalize and demonstrate that I'm sitting down maybe a few things. We'll talk about psychology, we'll talk about common sense, what's on the radar, hate crimes rising, what will we be discussing in this video, how to not be a target, how to incorporate the idea of self-defense into your daily life as a non-violent person, which most of you are, but I'm basically encouraging that you guys get involved in martial arts. Don't take the easy way out. Understand that a lot of people profiting off of MMA, you know, and a lot of this entertainment aspect of the human fighting. Yay! I mean, it's contaminated the society. That's part of the problem. We're actually discussing defending ourselves against people like that. I'm gonna kick your ass. I can hit really hard. And some people that are into the hard style of street fighting. How do you deal with some of those elements? How do you psychologically prepare for the fact that the world is like this? And females as well, not just men. The issue is immigrants that could be targeted. The issue is whites or white women that could be targeted for rape, for example, from groups, individuals, all races, all creeds. There's a lot of anger out there. Self-defense trends, right? When violent attacks are on the rise, I want to make a brief note. I understand some people are watching this first video that they're watching of mine. I talk about solar flares, and when we have geomagnetic storms caused by coronal mass ejections, I've noticed an increase in aggression. Others have as well, and there are studies on wars and solar flares. That's on a macro level. That's like on a nation-state level, and we see it. We see our 9/11s, and we see our Russian revolutions, and we see other periods, and we see unrest. It affects people's personalities. And those individuals that are already on the edge, they're just waiting for that extra thing, just push them over, or a confrontation. There might be certain periods, police officers and paramedics already know about full moons. It's just the solar flares that most humans don't really understand. So I want to point that out because I've noticed that there is a period in which there's more of an interest in martial arts. And I would even say, as someone that has been kind of analyzing my own body and over the years, there are certain periods in which it does seem that I have more testosterone and power when I'm hitting the bag and I'm moving and I'm reacting, and the brain's reaction times seem sped up. In some areas and cases, you may not want to dress in a way to make yourself a target. I know for a fact there's following Muslims in the United States that aren't running around with a hijab or something that's easily identified to be one. I would just keep this in mind. I would keep this in mind that even though God protects his followers, I believe that I'm a follower of the Creator. Even if you as a Muslim may not see me as a genuine follower of the Creator, I believe that I'm a messenger. And I believe that I'm here to deliver this message to you because I care about people that may have even placed judgment against me for being a quote-unquote non-believer. I know the Christians have. I know the Portlanders judge me. Doesn't matter. I'm going to warn the Portlanders about this upcoming human trafficking epidemic. Women there, white women there, need to be trained in self-defense. People need to be gathering together and have a backpack group where you and your friends have an escape route, and you know who your friends are. You know who are the good men in your life. You know who are the good women in your life. And I'm just going to advise people, get outside your tribalism. And when you get outside your tribalism and you truly trust God, you truly trust the Creator, and you seek to help other people, the Creator will put people in your path, and the people the Creator puts in your path may not be the people that you were told were the righteous people. They may be black, they may be white, they may be male, they may be female. Right? You want to learn the martial arts? You want to learn to fight? Huh? You want to learn to defend yourself? Okay? Take this seriously. Okay? The ancestors that came before you had to learn how to fight to protect their women. Some of you have become, and including a lot of you women that are looking at the cell phone to defend you from the barbarian, that don't have a close-knit connection with other men. You've fallen out of line with nature. Okay? And they put you out of line with nature to set you up for the mass grab. Okay? We're talking about a president in office. They joke about grabbing that. You know what? Well, this ain't no joke. This ain't no joke. White woman, black woman, brown woman, yellow woman, you are the target of the New World Order. Okay? They want your mind, they want your soul, they want your body, they want to control what's in your genetics. They want to control the type of genetics you procreate. That's why all this stuff is happening. It's about controlling life, controlling the type of humans that are running around. And so they have created a massive boogeyman and boogie woman, and it's that which is either perceived or believed to be that of a Muslim. And that's the group that I'm trying to reach tonight with this information regarding self-defense. And that's all I have to say for now.
In the last days of Earth, I would stand against 777. In the last days, I would stand with the flaming sword against the race warriors of this fallen hell. I would stand against the silence of 7.77 billion people on earth, from Muslims to Christians to Buddhists to the atheists. I would stand against the sea of silence as they watch millions burn alive, millions of my DNA. I would stand against your silence. I would stand against your ignorance that yes, I am one of them. I am the only one of them that you have ever heard in years. You live in a world where I am the last of the Mohicans. You live in a world where people like me are the ones that are being removed off your planet in large numbers. I say to the soldiers of Odin, I fear you not. I fear not the entities of my own ancestry which we share. I call upon those ancient European ancestors of protection against you and your torches of darkness. Strike me down, I will come back as 1,000 points of light. I will rain solar hellfire down upon your new world order. Nothing will stop me.
So I'm going to address this, and there's a reason why I don't have comments on, and it's that I don't feel really liked by society or understood, and I think this is an example. So what I'll do for about an hour is allow comments to be on to see if any of you can provide some intelligent, responses to this, because some of you do know that I did defend refugees for years, and my criticism has been that there hasn't been enough support for my exposure of the deception of 9/11 and the abuse at the hands of Muslims, and lots of things regarding women that are subservient to men that hurt them and things that my dad has done. So I don't know if this is a relative. I don't know if this is my sister. I don't know who this person is. I don't know if this person...
Roseanne, get in here. What? You can't just stand on the front porch staring at your Muslim neighbors. It's just so obvious you're spying on them.
No, it isn't. I've got a rake.
Holding a rake and staring is not a cover. Raking is a cover. Now, come on. We need 3 people to make this into a fun coupon club. Otherwise, we're just 2 poor people trying to save a nickel on tuna.
Did you see the crazy amount of fertilizer they got stacked up near their garage? That's how they make bombs. What if this is a sleeper cell full of terrorists getting ready to blow up our neighborhood?
What proof do you have, Roseanne?
This proof. Anytime something bad happens, it's always somebody who lives next door to somebody.
Oh my God. You figured it out. Terrorists are always neighbors. So, all we have to do is arrest everybody.
I'm telling you, this is what people from Iraq and Talibanistan do. They hide out in neighborhoods like Lanford. Don't you watch the news?
You don't mean the news, you mean Fox News. And, there is no Taliban. Oh, forget it. Jump in here, Anne-Marie.
Oh, because I'm black? I'm the expert on racism?
Oh, geez, I am so sorry. I'm willing to learn from my mistakes.
Well, good. So in that case, if you just give me the 50% off on the cream cheese, we'll call it even.
If you're so sure they're not terrorists, go out there and look at how much fertilizer they've got.
If it makes you shut up and stop with this, then fine. That's not that much fertilizer. Hold on. That is like a crazy amount of fertilizer. But it doesn't mean anything.
I'm done talking to you people. Hi, Chuck.
Oh, hey, Rosie.
Dan, our new neighbors have way too much fertilizer.
After 45 years of marriage, you run out of things to talk about.
Okay, so neither one of you are worried about this?
We don't have time. We're getting ready for this meeting. They're probably just regular folks who want to make a home here. They painted their fence. They put in a new mailbox. They have an American flag, for God's sake.
Dan, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with Rosie on this one. Dan, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with Rosie on this one. It sounds like they're trying a little too hard.
Roseanne. We have a problem.
That's all we ever have, Jackie. Gotta be more specific.
We were all set up for Mary to Skype with her mom, and then your Wi-Fi cut off, and she's starting to freak out.
Oh, my God. That internet check must have bounced. But maybe there's a good chance we can show our face at Sears again. All right. Last time this happened, we just used the Gursky's Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's nice. The neighbors gave you their password?
No, we figured it out. It was stop using our Wi-Fi 123.
There's no Gursky network on here.
Well, I know the Gurskys moved away. Now the terrorists are living there. Now the terrorists are living there.
Oh my God, Mom, you have no reason to believe those people want to hurt you. They'd have to get to know you first.
The only signal strong enough is called Al-Harazi. That's got to be their last name.
Or it's an Arabic word that means stop using our Wi-Fi.
So all we have to do is guess the password.
Try Death to America. Death to America.
This is ridiculous. Nope.
Okay, Death to America 1, 2, 3.
Hey, we're in.
Really?
No, this is ridiculous.
I'm your neighbor from next door.
One moment.
Give me that.
Nice work, Jackie. Here's a plant. Welcome to the neighborhood. We know that this is a crazy time to wake somebody up, but you see, our Wi-Fi went out, and we need to make an emergency Skype call, and we were just wondering if you could be so kind as to lend us your password.
Are you drunk?
No, that's really the reason why we came over, but drunk is a good guess on any other night.
I'm Fatima Al-Harazi, and this is my husband, Samir.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was so rude of us. I'm Jackie, Roseanne's sister. I'm a certified life coach if you're having any trouble assimilating.
Not now, Jackie. Yeah, well, my little granddaughter, you know, she needs to talk to her mother, and it's a whole other time zone and everything because her mom's in Afghanistan.
What does she do in Afghanistan?
She's in the Army. If you guys have any family over there, let us know, and we'll put in a good word with the drone people.
We're from Yemen.
Oh, good. Yemen's not even on the travel ban list.
Yes, it is. Roseanne, why don't you just bring your granddaughter over here to Skype? The signal will be much stronger.
Over here? Well, no, we couldn't. We've already imposed on you enough.
You don't want us to see the Skype, so we'll know where in Afghanistan her mother is. Right. Because you think we'll find out her coordinates and give them to our ISIS friends on Facebook. You see, they hate us.
We don't hate you. We're scared of you.
Yeah, we're scared of you too.
Well, we have way more reason to be scared of you. How do you explain all that fertilizer in your yard?
That's because genius over here doesn't know every time you click on the Amazon order button, you're putting another 50-pound bag in the cart.
What's happening?
Kazim, go back to bed. Everything is fine.
Okay.
Wow, you only told him once and he listened right away. I hate to ask how you discipline him because that looks like a bulletproof vest.
Yes, it is. Some people yelled some pretty terrible things at us the other day, and he started to have nightmares. Helps him feel safer. Go Cubs.
Thank you. And, yay, Yemen.
That's the password. Go Cubs. We're big baseball fans.
Oh, that is so funny because you should hear what we were guessing that you're passing.
Oh, it's so kind of you, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's the right thing to do. The ignorance of adults shouldn't punish children.
The government doesn't want to pay for it because they think that prepared food is a luxury item. You know how rich people have yachts and summer homes? We have pre-cooked chicken.
That's $75.43. It says insufficient funds. You're $30 short.
I didn't know.
Sorry. Maybe the American taxpayers forgot to fill it up last week.
Excuse me?
I'm an American taxpayer sometimes. Put it on my EBT card.
You don't need to do that.
Well, we're stealing your cable, so this probably makes us even.
Maybe you can help her carry the groceries out to her camel, too.
Thank you.
What about all the other statements you made about
About the Colleen Romero and the thing there, yes, I am being told by people that she's evicting people from their land that have RVs up in the Sangredo Cristo Mountains. Right. I'm meeting someone in a couple days.
Okay, but let's go back to, I listened to you, listen to me. I gave you the respect, listen to me. My thing is, you're a human being. All your friends you're advocating for are human beings. They deserve to be treated as human beings, so live as human beings, not as pigs. You deserve proper septic, running water, like every other American in the United States.
Right.
And you, sir, whether you're from Saudi Arabia,
resources.
from Middle East, from Iraq, wherever, from any other country, no disrespect.
I'm from Portland. I was born in the United States.
There you go.
So I know what it's like for people to judge someone.
Okay, so
and I apologize sincerely.
I listened to you. I have a recording where I listened
Well,
to
you haven't accepted my apology. You're just accusing me at this point. So I will shake your hand or say goodbye because you think I'm you think I'm a hateful person, I believe. And I apologize sincerely.
I call it as I
Okay,
say it.
I don't think that you believe me. So if you want to judge me, judge me.
I'm nobody to judge. God judges it. God judges it.
I believe in God too. I prayed to God before I came to Costilla for a place of rest. Okay? And I don't think that you've looked at my other work and what I exposed in Portland before I left. I don't think that you've actually looked at
You're still not listening. You're still not listening. All I want to say is whether you're from Portland, whether you live in Oregon, whether you live in LA, New York, Arkansas, Idaho, Iowa, you're not going to just park an RV and live however you choose.
I came with the intention of building a home. No, you're talking to me like I'm like one of these trash, but you're talking to me like I'm the... Doing a YouTube video talking about real estate, talking about how are humans going to live in the future. Nothing to do with the bank. My name's Alex.
Hi, Alex. I'm Angela.
Do you have a recurring problem with independent journalists, people with cameras speaking their mind at your particular camera? Or was it just me that you chose to speak to?
What my concern is that anytime anybody's walking around a bank parking lot videotaping something,
Right.
taking pictures,
Do I look suspicious to you?
you do not.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't always look suspicious, and it is
Right.
my job.
Do you have
to make sure I'm
issues?
protecting-
Sure. Do you have issues with privacy concerns that regularly come up with people that are walking down the street with a camera?
No, sir.
The actual topic, though, synchronicity, happens to be classism at the moment that you're walking up. So this is a great opportunity for you to stay and let's continue talking. Hey, let me make sure I'm on public property. Am I on private property at the moment? Okay. Just so you know, I wasn't filming anyone or anyone's faces. Just so you know.
Sure. Sir, the reason I came out, if I could explain to you why I came out, I work for a bank. We have security processes that we pay attention to what is going
Sure.
on.
Yeah.
Yes, you walked down the street, but you
Right.
also walked into our parking lot. You are videotaping, and you were taking a picture. I don't know what you.
No, it's video, and it's going to be, and I can give you the channel, and yeah, it's going to be a video.
Okay, great. So
Angela Cook with,
Yeah.
okay,
So
right
now
on.
that I know what
Vectra Bank.
we're doing.
Right.
That you want to be here. That's okay.
No, and I wasn't staying there. I was walking. Actually, I was walking away as you said, sir. And we're not arguing. I mean, if this was a different situation or something, and I realize that you have a lot of homeless here, which is another part of the topic.
Yeah.
What drives at the moment? That was the topic. What's driving the homelessness?
Sir.
I'm not homeless here. Just to let you know that if that bothers you.
I appreciate that you want to
Right.
classify me in a different way, but that is not what was happening here. I was doing my job as the manager of the bank. So.
Wait. You're turning that around really quickly. I'm actually discussion about the economy and the U.S. government spending all your money on war. Maybe it's time to have that conversation that might sound like a beer buzz or he's talking about the economy. Maybe we need to find out why we can only afford to eat at McDonald's. I think we need to talk about what 9/11 was an inside. All right, here he comes. Get it? We got you on film, buddy.
Good evening, sir.
You can't just pop your fucking trunk and try to get your fucking camera out.
We apologize, sir.
Waking my daughter up, you little motherfucker. You fucking faggot from fucking right-wing motherfucker. Yeah, film me.
Oh my God. You figured it out. Terrorists are always neighbors. So, all we have to do is arrest everybody.
And you've always thought you couldn't dare press on nails because of all the active things you do? Well, you're ready for beautiful, natural looking, easy to apply nails. 3 colored in 7 luscious hues. Just
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Goddamn hacker, that second time nice that asshole's cutting.
The movement was begun 8 months ago by a small group of scientists who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent through.
It's giving me a headache. Yeah, tell me about it. It took the hackers months to figure out how to do this.
The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
Blow it out your ass.
Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream